Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Buckeye Huddle Live post-game show. I'm Mark Givler, got Devin Radcliffe with me. Before we get into things, I do want to thank everyone for joining, for watching us. Want to thank our sponsor, WagerWire. WagerWire is a sportsbook app, so it puts all your sportsbooks in one place, lets them track from one app. You can look at your betting history, your stats, what your current action that's out there. You can sign up for new sportsbook bonuses directly through the app. So if you want to sign up for a couple sports books, you don't have to go to 3 or 4 different sites to do that. You just do it all through that one app. And it's an app designed to make you a better. So it's incentivizing you to win. Actually, they don't take the action from you. They just let you kind of put everything in one spot. So they want you to win. So that's another cool thing about it. And but we appreciate their support and their sponsorship of our instant reaction show. Devin, I know Twitter maybe wasn't very happy in the first half. I thought that was a pretty clean win. I thought pretty clean on both sides of the ball, maybe clean up a little things on offense in the first half, but you got out of this, I think, without any further injuries. You got some guys out there who haven't been healthy, who were able to go and get some production and then get out of there. I thought that was about as well as you could have drawn this one up today.
Yeah, no, I understand from a fan point of view being very frustrated with the first half, but there's a statistic that went around at halftime from their sports reporter guys, and in Ohio State's offense, average starting position in the first half was their own 9-yard line. So when you step back a second and you read that, it happened to me. I read that and said, "Whoa, I'm actually pretty excited they're able to go down and get 3 scores." Obviously that in the first half, the can't punch it in inside the 5, it crept back in and manifested itself again from earlier this season. But getting into the day, the 13-0, going into halftime, have control of the game. I saw some on social media there. I saw a little bit of from frustration there about not making an aggressive run at it there when you had 2 minutes and a couple timeouts. But again, you're starting the ball on your own 9-yard line or whatever. So it's, with the team you have this year, and I think I've said this a few times, here the past couple of weeks, with the team you have this year, that's not this team. Chew the clock out, go play defense. Don't do anything crazy to put you in a make a game when it didn't need to be. So maybe last year you got C.J. Stroud and company. Yeah, let it rip, let's go. But that's not the team this year.
It seemed like they weren't sure. It just seems like there's a lot of indecisiveness there at the end of the half as far as what they were going to do. Or are we going to try and go? And then they got that first down quick, and then it's like, oh, maybe we'll try. And then I think there was a penalty in there. There was a couple of mistakes in there. So just got all sorts of discombobulated there. My only problem, and boy, did they dodge a bullet here. This is like my only thing coming out of this game that I'm going to be like negative about. I think the rest of it went pretty well from the Ohio State's perspective, but that last play, if Kyle McCord got seriously injured there, and it sure looked like he did, but it looked like he was just able to kind of go in the locker room and get it taped up and seemed to be moving okay in the second half. If that had been a serious injury, that would have been a disastrous blunder. They did not need to run a play there. It was 3rd and 12, I think. There's less than 20 seconds on a running clock. You could have done nothing. You didn't have to. I had a couple people tweet at me, well, they could have just kneeled. You didn't need to kneel. You didn't need to do anything. The clock was going to run out. You go right to the locker room. On 3rd and 12 with like 18 seconds left, what are you going to accomplish from inside your own 20? I don't know what they were hoping to do there. The odds of them getting a playoff there that would have put them in a position to get points for the half was incredibly low. So that's like my one thing of today's game that was like, whoa, what are we doing here? But other than that, like I said, I thought the offense, and I kind of said this, if they had turned one of those field goals, especially the short one, if that had been a touchdown drive instead of a field goal drive, I think people would have taken, even though it was only 17-0 versus 13-0, I think people would have had a much different attitude towards the first half. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I bring up a great point with that third and why are we trying this down? I actually kind of slipped my head there for a minute with the time left on the clock. You're exactly right. They could have just tossed the ball to the ref and walked in as I'm sitting here thinking about it and just been done with it. They didn't have to do anything. And, those are situations where you look at it and you just got to, whatever superstition you got, just be glad you got it, because for Ohio State and the Ohio State coaching staff and team, they definitely a disaster avoided or averted right there on that play, because that could have been one heck of a storyline leading into the game this week. Hey, true freshman starting, first career start ever. Of course, I don't know. Craig Krenzel comes to mind when I think of that, but crazier things have happened. But no, you're exactly right at that point.
Yeah, and it would seem obvious. I think it was pretty obvious that Devin Brown is not quite there yet. I think that's something to watch this week. Will he be ready to contribute in some way next week in terms of maybe a goal line package? Because it felt like before he got hurt, they were gearing up to kind of unleash that. And so we'll see. So yeah, I mean, it very well, as we look back on this, it very well may be a situation where if McCord gets hurt there, it's Lincoln Keenholz. But who knows? Maybe they go to Tristan just with the experience, and they're only putting Keenholz in at the end now just because they can. There's no redshirting issue at this point. He can get some reps, but yeah, let's lots of positives though. I mean, let's not dwell too much on that. They got away with it. Great start to the second half, Devin. I mean, you literally could not draw up the start of the second half better. You go 75-yard touchdown run, sack fumble, touchdown again, and it's 27-0 there before you can blink. Travion Henderson, man, we've been talking about him a lot the last couple of weeks, but just how good was he today?
We could put a couple different storylines into just those two plays, or those two plays and subsequent plays there on the defensive turnover. I mean, first the run game evolution that we've seen this year, and we talked about it last week a bunch, and just what we're seeing from the run game, Travion Henderson being healthy and looking like the 5-star that came in a few years ago, showing vision, showing his ability to make the move needed to hit the lane. And then obviously everyone's always known he's had the explosiveness and top end speed to run away from people. And 75 yards. And if I'm not mistaken, he may have been untouched if I recall correctly. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head if someone was able to get a hold of him, but that's still one incredible run. And I think something that goes unnoticed there in that play was, I hope everyone realized who was down there running with him into the end zone. Harrison Jr. comes from across the field, and it's kind of his personal protector there down the side, down the home stretch of that run. So some Heisman contender, best wide receiver, and he's making hustle plays to block somebody. And again, flip it on defense. We talked about this prior to the show. Jack Sawyer, slowly but surely, gets better and better and better, and finally probably played his best game we've seen him play in 3 years at Ohio State today. I know at half, I think he had 3 tackles lost alone. Then that strip pressure, strip sack, whatever they're going to call it in the statistics, he's been really stout against the run this year. But I see him start turning those I'm going to blow up the run plays into not just blow up the run, I'm going to turn them into negative plays. He's taking that next step in his evolution, in his development as a complete defensive end. And then, again, you get the ball first and goal, if I'm not mistaken, or close to it. And, again, they find a way to scheme up Marvin Harrison Jr. one-on-one. And like you said, next thing you know, it went from 13-0 and, oh, my God, what is wrong, to, and this game's over. And everyone's going, all right, pull everybody. On social media, it's all you saw. All right, 27-0, get everybody out. So, and that was, again, in 2 series. I don't even remember what the game clock was, but it seemed like 5 minutes the game was over. So
I think it was something like 3 minutes in actual game time. It was crazy just how fast that turned on them. But yeah, I mean, you talked about with Sawyer a little bit, the dominant defense today. This was a game that I don't care how upset you were at any point in the first half. This was a game that was never, ever in doubt. And just a really good effort from the defense again. Again, you mentioned I really wanted to hit on that was Jack Sawyer's best game. Even games where he has had a sack or 2 sacks, there you can point at things like, well, he got too far upfield against the run, and they broke a couple on his side of the field because he just too far upfield, out of the running lane, ran himself out of a play, undisciplined, this, that, or the other. This was a clinic today. I mean, in the second half, they started double teaming him. They started using a guard or a back to chip on Sawyer. They were having a really hard time with him today. And, he had the strip sack, which was a huge game-changing play. He had the huge hit in the flat in the first half. But he had several plays, a couple plays crashing down against the run right around the line of scrimmage. There were a couple other plays. One he made the tackle on where they ran zone read at him. He was put into conflict. He was able to stay outside and kind of take away that outside lane for the quarterback and still jump back in and get the running back. So I thought he was tremendous the entire game. But quickly, I do want to give out my game ball. It was Trey Henderson. We just talked about him a lot. I've mentioned this before, Devin, and I think it's most important to talk about it now with who's next and what's next in Ann Arbor next week. And this is an offense that needs a little more juice out of the running game this year than maybe it's needed in the past as far as big playability. It's a team they're playing next week that it may not be easy. I can already read the tweets next Saturday coming when they go 3 and out a couple times. It's going to be a difficult game to consistently sustain drives. You are going to need to make 3 or 4 big plays in that game offensively. So you're not trying to go 75, 80 yards in 10 plays. It's not going to be able to be done over and over again. So you need these splash plays. Henderson, I don't know that they have a back on the roster other than him that scores either of those touchdowns, especially the one by the goal line. That was just tremendous. The hole was there, but that was a tremendous burst to kind of split the defenders there and get into the end zone. Just how important is that going to be? Just Henderson's ability to hit home runs next week, again, in a game that may come down to just 2 or 3 splash plays for one team or the other.
I don't think we need to look much further back than last year for the other team and the back-breaking plays that came against Ohio State from having a running back that you turn around and hand it to that can go 70. And, you're exactly right. Last year we saw, it's almost too cliches. We saw, who's going to be the most explosive player. We had to rely on Stroud's arm versus, versus the rival from up north, turn around, handing the ball off. And again, at the end of the day, they got those explosive plays out of the backfield. And I think this year, from the best I could tell, I'm by no means going to say I've been scouting ahead by any stretch of the imagination, but
no signals. Do you have any signals?
I got nothing. I got nothing for anybody. Ohio State seems like they got the guy in the backfield who is the legit home run threat this year, and that's not taking away anything from the rivals' backfield because they got 2 really good backs themselves. But it just seems like Henderson's that one that if he gets a crease, he's a bigger threat to go 75 this season.
Yeah, and we'll get to this probably throughout the week, but yeah, I mean, watching Michigan today, they are struggling a bit with hitting the home runs out of the backfield. But we got Ryan Day. We will get back to this here momentarily.
Over here to the left, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
At what point during the game did your thoughts already start thinking to next week?
No comment. Yeah, I can't get into that. I mean, it's, I would just say though that our team did a great job of staying focused this week. Not easy to do for anybody, but we did. We stayed in the moment and played well. But the minute we get into that locker room, it's on to the next week.
Over here to the right, Clay Hall, WSYX, and then Tim May.
That 1-minute sequence to start the second half turned the game, and was that the result of some comment at halftime?
Well, we wanted to win the first 5 minutes. We ended up scoring, I think, 14 in the first minute. Touchdown, turnover, touchdown. It's something that we talked about all year, is coming out in the second half and playing well. Every year you try to identify the areas that you want to improve on, and that was an area that we wanted to do a great job with. And so good to see us come out like that and gave us a little bit of a cushion, and then allowed us an opportunity to get some of those guys out of the game and rest it up for next week.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, in the last 2 weeks, you guys have nearly put up 1,000 total yards. Just what have you learned about Kyle the last 2 weeks that you think that will benefit him going into?
Yeah, no, you could see him when he's on rhythm and making some big time reads down the field. I thought he threw some good balls today, and when he's playing situational football and his feet are in rhythm like that, you can see. I mean, we got the weapons and he's got the talent. So, it's all been a build up towards this week to go swing as hard as we can and play our tails off. And so I feel like we have all of our weapons here and healthy, and that's great. We'll get Tommy back for next week. Tommy was ready to play in this one, and I had to pull him back, and it was almost a fist fight, but I won. It took some I'll be honest, it took some late night texts last night he wanted to play, and this is a guy who has put so much into this program. Coming back, and for senior day, for him not to be out there was really hard for Tommy, really hard. But I just explained to him there's just too much on the line moving forward to risk any kind of setback, that we need him at his best. And he was, after some calming down, he was okay. But it was not easy for him to not play in this game, and that was my decision. He was ready to go. He pushed himself to get to a point, but he'll have another great week of practice and be at 100% going into next week.
Over to the right, Austin Ward, the podcast, and then Tim May.
Ryan, I'm sure you'll look more closely on film, but did you feel in the first half when you talk about Kyle's footwork, it seemed like maybe he wasn't in quite the same rhythm as he was a week ago? Did you have that sense at all in the first half with him?
I have to look at the film quickly. We're not going to really dive into this film all that much, but we are going to grade it and make sure we stay with our routine. I'll have to look at a couple of them. I know there were a couple that the looks were a little bit different than what we expected, and so in those moments, you got to keep your feet moving and move on to the next thing. So I think there was some good play, and then there was some things that we could probably scheme up better, and then also moving on from the first or second thing and try to find the next part of it.
Over to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch, and then Nathan Baird.
Ron, what's the challenge of the fine line between playing guys and taking them out so they don't get injured? And were you swallowing hard at the end of the first half when Kyle drops back and gets hit there and kind of gets up slowly?
It is you got to thread that needle. You do, and ultimately we have to win every game, so that's the number one goal. But you can't do anything anything less than 100%. I mean, when it's time to go, you got to go. And you certainly can't go in there and try not to get people hurt. It doesn't work that way. You got to go, and we did. We played hard. We played physical. But when we were able to come out in the second half and build a little bit of that cushion, it was good to get those guys out and get them some rest. And that was the ideal situation for us. Is that if we could get them out and not play a full game, it allowed us a little bit more rest heading into next week.
At the end of the half there, with the
I think we had 4 drives inside the 10 or so, and I guess we could have just jumped into a 2-minute and fired it down the field, but a tip ball or something goofy or a sack, and the ball comes out, and all of a sudden you're into the fourth quarter, and I just felt like we had the ball coming out in the second half, so we ran it a few times. We got a first down, then we got the penalty, but even the third down, I should have just run it. I mean, I knew the crowd wouldn't be too fired up about it, but that's the job of the head coach, to just make the decision that's best for the team at that moment. But there was still, I think, 20 seconds on the clock, and I felt like maybe if we got a first down, we had a couple timeouts left, we could possibly push it up for a field goal, and the game was still in the balance at that point.
Tim May, the Tim May Show.
Yeah, Ryan, just your defense, once again, a 50-something yard field goal cost you a shutout. I mean, do you feel for those guys a little bit as hard as they played tonight? And then number 2, Trevion Henderson. Once again, the big burst. I mean, it's obvious what he brings, right? Yeah. No, he's a home run hitter, and the more opportunities he gets, and he gets to the second level, he's dangerous, once we get him back there. And it's everybody's job to get him there. And I thought on that play in particular, I have to watch the film, but I think Emeka and I think Julian sprung him on the perimeter. But the guys up front did a nice job moving the line. I think Cade did a good job, too, on the backside of that. And you were asking about the defense? Yeah, well, listen, I just not having Tommy out there. We've had a couple of guys down. I think we should be at full capacity next week, which is great. But it's all going to be tested next week. And but you're seeing the strides. I mean, it is what it is. We're getting better every week. But it's all headed towards the end of the season and playing our best football.
Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com, and then Dan Hope.
When you say you think you'll be at full strength next week, does that include Mike Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to give you guys somewhat of an update next week, but yeah, we're expecting to get everybody back.
And with Kyle, you've talked before this season about how over the course of the season, the answers you're getting from him when he comes off the field has been progressively better. Were you getting the answers you wanted tonight in those red zone short field situations?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for the most part, he saw it. It wasn't. There wasn't one where he came back and said, I didn't see it that way. There was a play action pass where the corner was there. I asked him if he saw the corner. He said yes. He still made the throw and he snuck it in there, which was a really good ball. So no, I think he's seeing it well, and yeah, I mean the communication's been good.
Over here to the right, Bill Landis, the podcast.
Ryan, it seemed like Emeka had his burst back today. I don't know if you felt that too down there, and how important was it to kind of get him feeling like himself again going to the next week?
Huge. Yeah, it was. I saw it too. Saw it a little bit this week, and then it was great to see him in the game, kind of playing like that. You could see him. We tried to get him involved with a couple runs, a couple things on the perimeter, just to kind of see that. And yeah, I mean he's getting as close to 100 as he could possibly be.
Over to the left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Jack Sawyer had 3.5 tackles for loss today. Could you see that kind of performance coming from Jack with the way he's been playing lately?
Yeah, he's been playing hard. His attitude's been great. Yeah, I think what do you have? Four something tackles, sack, and then the sack fumble, which was big, right? That was Jack, and then he had the 3.5 TFLs, which was excellent. So yeah, I think he's getting better every week. Good news is best football's ahead of him. But another guy who just keeps putting time in, man. He just keeps putting days together. He keeps preparing, keeps grinding. Just like a bunch of those guys on defense. And that all we're counting on to pay off here down the stretch.
All right, we're going to take just a few more questions for Coach, but in the meantime, I've got Jack Sawyer here. I'm going to move him to the far back table to the left. So if everybody at the tables could clear off there, those are for the student athletes. Jack, if you don't mind going to the far left. All right, well, over here to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
To play Dallin today and burn one of those games he has left.
Yeah, so he had 2 left, and so that's it. So, and then he's got next week. So,
was there any part of it where you just wanted to get him some run out there to keep him fresh in case you would need him tomorrow or next week or down the stretch?
Yeah, well, yeah, we felt like we wanted to get him in the game a little bit because it's been he hasn't played a ton this year, and I thought, like you said, going into next week or moving forward, it'd be good to get him some carries. I don't know how many he ended up with. Yeah, 8 carries. That's pretty good. 4.2 yards a carry. Thought he ran good when he was in there.
Can he play the big pass? Can he play past the Big Ten championship game if, in fact, he's going to the playoff?
Yeah, the way that it's been done in the past is that you get 4 games and then you have postseason. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go 2 more questions for Coach Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, as you got asked earlier, Mecca looked a little bit better today. Obviously, Marvin's been Marvin all year. The way Travion is running, the way Kyle's progressing. Is this offense 11 games into the season where you want it to be heading into next week?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're here. We're here now. And is there always things we want to get better at? Absolutely. But I think you're seeing the identity that we're looking for. I think you're seeing the run, you're seeing the pass, you're seeing the explosiveness, and that's what we want. And so we're 11 games in, time to go play.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you talk all the time about how everything falls back on the head coach, just at everything level of the program. Next week means everything to the program. Is it easier to stay focused on the days ahead when you have the guys that you just credited staying locked in on the days ahead and not trying to get ahead of themselves? How much easier does that make it for you to stay?
Yeah, I think the key is to stay in the moment. There'll be emotion this week. There'll be a lot of there'll be a lot this week, but there'll be noise. There'll be everything. What we have to do is we have to do a great job of preparing. We can't do anything different. We have to continue to stay with our routine and then focus on maximizing every minute of this week. And then noon on Saturday is going to come. That's not going to come any faster by us, doing something else. So we need a great week of preparation. And then, we're all in this thing together. We are. I love this team. We've been working hard to get to this point. And so we need a great week of preparation. And then we get on that bus and we head to Ann Arbor.
And one final question for Coach Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, I don't know your game day schedule, but did you watch any of the Maryland-Michigan game? Did you catch any of that, and what'd you think?
I might have. Yeah, I might have. I mean, you know, when you have time, you're always watching the other games, and certainly that one was on.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that was Ryan Day. We will see if they bring anybody else back up. Not sure what they're going to do with the podium, but we'll send it out to them the minute we know. Looks like we've got someone coming up there, but if we can go real quick, we got. Oh wait, I think we got somebody. Maybe.
Caitlin, how many tables do we have back there? Do we have one? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Jordan Hancock. Devin, we saw him again make a big play today, interception, but that whole drive, like 2 plays before that, he shoots in on a blitz. He like splits a couple of would-be blockers, gets a shoestring tackle there on the running back, just blows up a running play that may have had something there. His versatility in a year where they've had so many injuries in the secondary, and this was going to be a highly scrutinized secondary this year anyway, just based off how last year ended. How key has his versatility and his high level of play been? I think it's been one of the biggest differences on this defense.
Yeah, no, he's really been a heck of a ball player this year, and I think that's the best way to describe him right now, playing that position. As we've seen him this year in particular games where you would think he would substitute for a bigger body, maybe even a real linebacker. He's able to stay in there, and he fits the run, not just as a body in there. I mean, you said it best. He comes in there in the run game looking to make a play. And you know, sometimes guys are in there, they're coming to Ohio State to play corner. They're thinking, I'm going to go cover people. You know, this tackling thing, that's for someone else. But no, he has really not only embraced to take advantage of the opportunity, but he's really excelled in the role. And of course, obviously, the huge interception he had again this week. Again, it speaks exactly to his versatility, where he's able to fit in the run, able to fit plays well in the pass game, obviously, in coverage. You know, they play cover one still, playing in zone. Gives them a little bit of flexibility. Again, you know, Jim Knowles end day still wants to be a 3 safety type structure defense, so he has the ability to play second and third level, play on the roof in the defense when he's able to disguise and move his coverage around some. But no, his versatility really goes really is an unsung or doesn't get enough recognition to the impact he's had on the defense performance so far this season.
And it's very selfless, I think. You know, he gets here as a big time recruit. He's going to play corner. He's going to play on the outside. He has early injuries that kind of derailed him early in his career. He moves to nickel, which I think people are starting to realize is becoming a more valuable position on modern defenses, but there's always been a stigma around the slot position about how it's not a real cornerback position and all the outside guys make the money at the NFL level and everything else, but he has really embraced it. And I think I think his emergence this year, along with probably, you know, Josh Proctor coming back from the abyss after just again, injuries, poor coaching changes, defensive scheme changes, everything else, I think has driven that defense this year. So let's get to your stuff. I know we talked about the defensive dominance a little bit with your 3 things. Run game over 200, you know, obviously a big game again for the running game. How important is that heading into Michigan week?
Yeah, I think we just, we kind of talked about it earlier, especially with Henderson, the ability to turn around and give it to the guy who could flip the field in one touch and having the ability to hand it to that guy is huge. And again, I think, Coach Day was talking about it some there in the post-game press conference of building the identity, and we're seeing him adapt, and looks like we're going to have Coach Knowles here, adapt his offense and his run game, going away from stretching the cutback to more downhill, more gap scheme, playing the strength of his offensive line. So there's a lot of credit, kind of putting 2 topics together here, but evolving his offense to put his team this year and the best chance to be successful.
That's a big deal. We've been, much better in our coverage and defending the explosives in the pass game. I felt like over the past few weeks we've given up a couple things in the running game. So, it was really important for us to, make a showing in the running game to keep getting better.
Over here to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Jack Sawyer was all over the place today. Was this as good as you've seen Jack play since you've been here at Ohio State?
Yeah, Jack's been on a great streak. He's really embraced his role. He's consistent. He understands the scheme. He knows when he can take chances. He's been really effective in the running game, which I think sometimes goes unnoticed. But he's just a guy we count on, and he's a stalwart for the defense.
Okay, and this last question in the back there for Jack Sawyer, please. Over here to the left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Jim, you mentioned Jack being on a great streak. Is there something maybe different you've seen from Jack in recent weeks where he's taken his game to another level?
No, Jack's always been a great team guy, but I see just a steely-eyed focus. He's a nice young man. Really is. But he's turned into a cold-blooded gentleman, which is what we like.
Over to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
First of all, what do the opposing field goal kickers have against you guys? Kicking 53, 54-yard field goals. But seriously, you guys have waited, you personally especially, 52 weeks for a chance at this game again. How much anticipation is there? How much confidence is there? However you'd want to describe your feelings going into that game.
We're gonna digest this one. Obviously, look for the things that we can get better at from this game. I think that's important. And it's a build. It's a build, and it's going to be a build starting tomorrow. And obviously, I'm sure the guys are going to be ready, and we've come to count on our defense, and it needs to remain that way.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch, and then Katie Kapusta.
Week where Spill said they make a 50-yard field goal and your chances of a shutout are spoiled. Is that something that you guys cared about, having a shutout, having a 0 on the scoreboard, the fact that it's been elusive, or do you look at the defensive performance and a lot of other things that tell the story?
Yeah, I think the game, tells the story. It's obviously nice to get it if you can, but more importantly, we look at all the situations, and we break those down. So it is what it is.
Over to the right, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Jim, you never really got a chance to see Jordan healthy in this defense last year. How much of a difference does he make? Is he making right now because of how versatile he is?
Yeah, Jordan's been just a huge plus for us, to have a cover skills corner who's also willing to mix it up in the run game. I mean, you've seen him. He's willing to get dirty. He attacks the run game. So it's really given us an added dimension.
Over to the left, Katie Kapusta, Spectrum 1.
Jim, you talk about building up to next week. There's been so much buildup, especially on the defensive side, from what happened last year. How do you think this defense compares in terms of being ready for this big game, especially considering these last couple performances?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about confidence, defense. And playing defense at this level is a lot about confidence. So when you can show them things, that we've done well here this season, and how that matches up to what we're going to do, it certainly beats any talk. Experience is a great teacher, and we have it now. Where we can be counted on.
Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Jim, you guys make it pretty clear that you guys are focused on one thing, one game at a time, 1 week at a time. So I'm not asking you about next week. But from week 1 to week 11, particularly the back end of the defense, how much better do you feel about this group here toward the end of the season compared to where you were at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think we all feel better, when you're playing in the back end and getting your hands on passes and contesting routes and being in the right position and on top when you're supposed to be on top. And, you see the numbers in the explosive plays. I mean, that tells the story. It's just something that gives everybody confidence. It gives the whole team confidence.
Over to the left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
You talked about Jack, steely-eyed, focused. How much of this season do you feel like all 11 guys that are out there at any one time are really focused on that? And has that been something that's built and you're there now, or are you still trying to get there?
We're always trying to get better, but I felt like I saw it in the first game. I thought that was a big deal. Come out in the option and guys are able to adjust and then you saw it over the course of the season with some good things in the red zone and some tight games and guys not flinching. So it's been a build since the first game, but there's been a focus since last spring, including myself, to make sure that we can be counted on, and making the changes and adjustments that are necessary to win the matchup games.
Got time for just a couple more. Tim May podcast.
Yeah, Coach, you may have been asked this before I came over here, losing another shutout by a 50-something yard field goal. How much of a bummer is that? And then number two, this game is coming up this week. It's been hanging out there for a long time for you, I would think, and stuff. But what are you already thinking about it? The challenge.
Yeah, we talked about the shutout. I mean, that's not a bummer. Hats off to the kid. He made a long field goal. We look at the situations. We evaluate our performance and series by series, play by play, and I mean it's certainly the overall defense. Has been on my mind since last year, of course, of how we can be better, in these matchup performances. We've already had a couple, and we got to build off that and be at our best.
Great. And last question for Coach Knowles. Over to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, are all end zone celebrations created the same? In other words, do you just look the other way sometimes, or are they all teaching moments?
No, you don't look the other way. Certainly, we've talked to the guys about celebrating on the sidelines. We want them to celebrate, but you don't look the other way. I mean, that's something that can hurt you, in a future performance, and we'll eliminate that.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, we're going to bring Kyle McCord up to the main podium. We will open it up right up front here with Tim May from the Tim May Show.
Kyle, that was an interesting first half. It just seemed like sometimes near the end, y'all weren't all on the same page together. But then, of course, you got it rocking in the second half and stuff. Well, explain that from your vantage point.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I thought we moved the ball well in the first half, but obviously left some points, especially in the red zone. I think you convert those to a completely different first half. It's a different feeling too. I think we were just off a little bit, and I think as a result left some points up on the field. But like you said, I thought the second half was a cleaner execution by us. So, I think the biggest thing is just getting on those little errors early on.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Kyle, kind of building off that a little bit. I mean, last week you were so sharp. It didn't look like you were as sharp today. Was that the kind of feeling you had too? And if so, what was the explanation for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Minnesota was a good team. They're a good defense. And, I think at certain points they made good plays. But I think, the other side of that was we weren't as sharp, like you said today, on certain plays. And like I said, I felt like a lot of the drives, we would move the ball, and we would just stall and, have to kick a field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. And, those are 4-point plays. So I think the biggest thing now is going back, watching the film, and, why didn't we execute, especially early on.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
one game at a time. We get it one play at a time. But now that it's here, how much have you been thinking about the upcoming game? How much do you allow yourself to think about it over the last, say, 10 weeks or more?
Yeah, I mean, and I think we say we prepare for it 365 days a year, and I truly believe that. I think guys on the team, we think about it every day, especially the way the last 2 years have gone. So to be back kind of in the same position that we were last year with a chance to, right the ship, I think everybody's definitely excited for it without a doubt.
It looks like you came up limping at the end of the half there. Any aggravated injury there or anything?
No, I mean, obviously a little bit of a weird tackle there, but popped up and, just started moving on it, so I'm good.
Over to the right, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Kyle, Emeka really looked like Emeka tonight in terms of just seeing that burst that I feel like he hasn't had just from the injury. Did you see that, and what's it like to have him back now as close to 100% as possible?
Yeah, I told Mech this. I thought this was the best he's looked since coming back from his injury. I thought he looked explosive tonight. Looked confident too with the way he was moving, and it was good to see. And I know he's been working his tail off to get back to this point. So to get him back, I think almost 100% at this time is huge.
Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Kyle, what are the most important ways you feel like you've improved from week 1 to week 11 in order to do what you have to do next week and win that game?
Yeah, I think every area, honestly. I think the biggest thing would just be that confidence level, having confidence in myself and my teammates around me. I think that was the biggest thing going back and watching that film from week 1. I would say, just a little bit of uncertainty. I think you can get as many practice reps as you want, but nothing is quite like those game reps. And so I think every week just been getting more confident, more comfortable in there. And, I feel like we're starting to get this thing rolling.
Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Kyle, you mentioned Emeka getting back to his form, Trey's getting going. You now have kind of all the pieces we thought you might have all year. Is this offense reaching the potential, starting to reach the potential you thought it might have early in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of what I've been talking about all year. I feel like we've been making strides in the right direction, and especially early on in the year, I think there were times where everything was clicking and we looked really good. And I think now we're starting to be more consistent, which is big. So I think the challenge now, obviously, with the opponent that we have coming up is how can we just continue that, continue to elevate our game, continue to play at a consistent basis. And I think that's been the mindset all year, so just continuing that into this week.
Lori Schmidt, Columbus Dispatch.
Kyle, just how are you feeling physically?
Good. Yeah, I think at this point, week 11, I don't know if there's anybody on that field that's 100%, but I think the O-line has done a really good job of keeping me upright, and I feel good. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you're doing everything you can during the week to get your body to tip-top shape to go out there on Saturday.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Kyle, you mentioned the losses the last 2 years in the Michigan game. Your role in this rivalry is very different this year than what it's been in the last 2 years, having to just watch it from the sideline. Is there any extra excitement or motivation and basically having a chance to impact that game in the way that you maybe haven't the last 2 years watching it?
Yeah, 100%. I think, that's kind of been, how I felt regardless of who we played. Just getting an opportunity to play this year has been special. And I think, you take that and you can put that with the rivalry. You can't draw it up any better than that. And so to be 11-0 right now and exactly where we want to be, this is kind of the way everybody in the Woody envisioned the season going to get in this point. That's what you work for.
Got time for two more. Over here to the left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Another big game for Travion Henderson. What does he look like from your vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, another big game from him, and we needed it. I think there were times today where they sat in a too high shell and tried to take away the pass, especially, Marvin. And when that's the case, there's going to be favorable run boxes, and I think Trey did his thing again today, which was huge. I think really springboarded the momentum in the second half with that big run and getting us going. And, I mean, man, another week, and, it doesn't surprise me what he does. The work he puts in is really starting to show.
And final question, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Kyle, what does it mean to get that touchdown to Cade on senior day?
Yeah. I mean, that's my guy. And I don't know if there's a guy that is a tougher dude who works as hard as he does, who does the dirty work, and so to get him that touchdown, I think that might have been his last play in the shoe. It's pretty special. So I can't really quantify what he means to this team, but to have that moment was pretty sweet.
Great, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, folks. Press box is closing. No, it is. It's going to close at 10:30 though tonight. It's late. Everybody's tired.
All right, that was Kyle McCord. Player interviews done. We'll have at least Jack Sawyer up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. So that's, if you guys want to watch that afterwards, go for it. And any other players they may have got that weren't at the podium will be up there. Before Devin and I continue to break this down, we got a bunch more people in here now since the press conference has started. We have some new gear I would like to share with you. I'm going to put the link to our store in the chat right now. You can see that, and we've got a very beautiful Michigan versus the Rules T-shirt here that you can purchase. Comes in a few different colors. You can get your size. It's high quality material, pre-shrunk, so it's not going to shrink up on you in the dryer. So check that one out. That one's a good one. We also got an Uncle T T-shirt that I think people will like. It's Uncle T. It says, with the quote, says, "I pity the rules." So that's another one that's going well right now in our store. We also have your regular Buckeye Huddle gear if you want to get a T-shirt or a hoodie or anything like that. We also have the Michigan shirts on hoodies, and I think on long sleeve tees. If not, if there's something you want to see there, we don't have it for some reason, or we don't have it in, like, if there's something on a T-shirt you want in a hoodie or whatever it might be, let us know. Reach out to us on Twitter. We'll get you taken care of. Devin, how are you feeling going into the game? I feel like the end of the press conference is kind of like the end of the almost the end of the Minnesota thing. So we got to wrap it up. But how are you feeling coming into the game next week? It's an interesting time right now.
Well, I think you got to take a step back first. And, you heard Kyle McCord there say it towards the end of his press conference there about how they're sitting there 11-0. And again, I typically myself don't even like these questions when they get brought up inevitably. Beginning of the year, if I told you such and such would do such and such, would you take it? Well, when you go back and look at the preseason predictions, I don't know who had Ohio State sitting here 11-0 going into this game. With everything they had to rebuild and lost last year in the draft. I don't know who we'd have to go back and dig up and see who said, hey, Ohio State is going to be at 11-0 going into the game this year. So I think that's the first thing you got to look at. And again, that was my last point there was this may have been, one of Coach Day's, early as a head coach, best coaching jobs potentially. Again, just taking a team, everything they lost, everything they had to rebuild, the way the season ended last year, and week by week got a little bit better every week to put them in a position to go into this game 11-0. In terms of how I'm feeling, now I'm not going to say exactly how old I am, but the gray beard and the gray in the beard and the side of the hair will give it away. I grew up, in the 90s, let's say. So this game to me, even though I'm supposed to be a grown man, my inner 13-year-old doesn't sleep well leading into this game. So, it's one of those things you just got to go out and you got to keep building, got to play every play. It's all the cliches that you could throw out there in coach speak, but that's when it really matters. And, you kind of you said it yourself. This could be one of those games where it's, 3 or 4 plays could make or break the whole game. This doesn't strike me as a game that's going to be a shootout necessarily. It's kind of an old school, for my time period, Jim Tressel, Lloyd Carr game where it's going to be run the ball, play defense, who flinches type ball game. So that's kind of the way I could see it unfolding in this year's edition of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, something in the high teens, low 20s might be first team to 20 wins, which has not really been the case really in a while, really since Urban Meyer.
Mhm.
Been a lot of teams scoring 40 and 50 in this game to win, but I think it will get back to that. We'll be talking plenty more about it this week, but I think we're in for a classic next week. I think we're in for a classic one way or the other. Let's get back to this running game. What have you seen? And we've talked about this before, but we got a lot of people in tonight that may not have kind of heard your breakdown of the running game. What are they doing well right now, and where are the changes made? Because you just hinted a minute ago, this might have been one of Ryan Day's better coaching jobs. I tend to agree with the adjustments he's made offensively and with the adjustments Jim Knowles has made. I think this is one of the better coaching jobs as a staff that we've seen in Columbus over the past, 7-8 years. So where were the changes? How have they been effective in the running game first?
Well, you got to step back and go back to the beginning of the year, and Ryan Day's favorite run play, I guess, really since 2019 has been called stretch or outside zone. Basically, the offensive line, I'm gonna use a little bit of hyperbole just to oversimplify it and explain it, wants to move the defensive line sideways and create a lane for the running back to make a drastic cut against the grain of the defense. I think the easiest example is think of J.K. Dobbins against I don't know, about every week it seemed like with him, but the Clemson run that he broke right off the bat for 65 yards or whatever it was comes to mind. You had the defensive line flowing hard. He cuts back and gets a big play. And Trey Sermon again in 2020 was another one who's really good at making that cut, basically make the defense wrong. Past couple years, kind of looking for an identity. Some seemed like in the run game would have hit or miss. Trey Henderson obviously hit some explosive plays in 21. Last year, he had the carousel of running backs because of injuries and whatnot, so he never really could get a feel for the run game. This year, it looked like that Coach Day and company really wanted to go back to stretch as their run game. If you're an NFL fan, think of Rams head coach, whose name escapes me at this very moment, McVay. He's a big stretch guy or outside zone guy because of all the stuff you can do under center, play action, pass, etc. Off of it. But again, they really don't have a back since Sermon that can make that drastic cut. So that's one, I guess you could say, negative in the run game. And two, this year, especially with their offensive line, there's some big old people movers. Again, kind of being oversimplified. They're not turned sideways and run type athletes like they had with like a Paris Johnson, NPF, the guys that we're seeing in the NFL already playing a bunch. But what they do have this year is guys that can move people. So what they've done as the years progress is they found more and more success with what's called gap scheme runs. And that's where, I think they talked about tonight, we saw it a bunch tonight, where the front side, where the play side of the line basically blocks back towards the center. And you typically hear them say things like stay on a track at an angle or an aiming point that the front side is working towards. And again, basically, whoever you run into, you just drive them that way. And in the backside, in some way, shape, or form, you have a puller or a guy that comes from the backside of the offensive line and crosses over the center and becomes on the front side of the play. And you saw it a lot with the backside puller. They're running counter variations where they're pulling a guard and the tight end. But again, that's typically what we saw a lot more of as the season progressed. And we're seeing a lot less of the stretch. Even Henderson's long run tonight, even though it may have been a stretch off the top of my head, it was more with a split back action. So you had the tight end coming back against the grain, kicking out the defender that's typically put in conflict, and it created that huge lane for Trey Henderson to run through. So again, it just played again. That's an example of how Coach Day's adapted his run game to fit the strengths of the team he has this year, even though it's not maybe philosophically his favorite. It's what puts his team this year in the best chance to be successful.
And that makes life a little easier on the backs, right? I mean, you're not relying as much on having this vision to, kind of see things almost before they open up. You kind of have an idea of where the play is supposed to go. Doesn't that make life a little bit easier, a little less thinking back there, a little bit more north and south for the backs?
100%. I think north and south is a great way to put it. And that's the type of backs they got, even though from there they have different type of skill sets. I mean, you saw Trainum and Williams before he got hurt. They're big, old human beings running the ball. Get them running forward at a high rate of speed. Travion Henderson, you can't catch him when he gets going at forward at a full rate of speed. You know, he doesn't need to make that drastic slowdown and cut back against the grain that Dobbins and Trey Sermon are really good at. He's not that type of back. Let's not ask him to be a type of back. Let's have him hit the hole hard, where he can, what you typically hear in this type of run scheme is bang. So hit the hole hard, bend, kind of take a little arc your running path, if you will, or bounce it outside. So you're still working on one side of the field. You don't have to try and cut it all the way back against the grain, again, like you had to have in the stretch play in the years past. So again, you hit the nail on the head. North-south runners, I describe them as Jim Tressel type running backs or Urban Meyer, where they're going to be downhill. We're going to attack vertically, try and move the defensive line off the ball instead of trying to wash them sideways and count on the running back to make us right. You hit the nail on the head. North-south, hit the hole, and hit the hole hard.
I think our Buckeye Weekly guys are ready. How we looking? Okay, we are.
Yes, we are good to go. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Devin.
Great
Appreciate
work
your
without Devin down there with the camera.
Yeah, we'll see. Don't say that until the show's over. But so far so good. We got you the Ryan Day and the podium stuff, so we might be okay with that, and we'll see how it goes. But yes, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Devin, and Tony. Guess what week it is?
It is officially Michigan Week, and welcome everybody to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always. As you said, it's Michigan Week.
It is Michigan Week. Yeah, there was a lot of conversation during the post-game interviews about so when did you guys start thinking about Michigan? And everyone was very diplomatic and said, not until no. And Ryan Day, I think, gave the most honest answer, which is, I'm not going to answer that because I'm going to guess his answer was probably sometime around the time the clock hit 0 against Penn State, maybe before that, but. I think the actual answer was right around the time it was 27-0 early in the third quarter, and it was like Minnesota could play football continuously against Ohio State from now until the start of the 2024 season, and they are not scoring 28 points. So this game is over.
Well, and we had talked before the game. At some point during the game, I will send out a tweet officially welcoming Michigan Week and asking for listener questions for a week's worth of podcasts, but when it was 27-0, I had the tweet ready to go. It was like, I've got it. I'm going to hit send. But if I hit send and something happens, then it's my fault, and that's not great business. So I held off until the Cade Stover touchdown, and then I sent it. And then like 20 seconds later, you're like, "Did you send it?"
I looked for it when it was 27-0, and I was like, boy, he's being very conservative with this.
Honestly, I wanted to send it 13-0 because there were not going to be 13 or 14 points scored from Minnesota, and their tremendous kicker, who is now an enemy of the state after costing me 3 points in a bold prediction contest for Ohio State's shutout that didn't happen. But you know what? I still won bold predictions, so I'm not going to be too upset.
Yeah, that's definitely the big story of the night, no question. Another really good performance by the Ohio State defense. It felt like a career night, or at least a career so far night for Jack Sawyer. 3.5 tackles for loss, a sack, forced fumble. JT Tuimoloau almost ran it in, not quite, but it was. I mean, the first half felt like the coldest spring game I can remember, where it was just kind of like, well, you don't want to show too much. You don't want to get anyone hurt, and those are the two most important things. And you want to get out of here with a win, but that's only slightly higher on the priority list than don't show anything and don't get anyone hurt. And it was frankly just a boring first half. There was just not a lot happened. And then the second half, they get the ball, one play, 75 yards. You'll never guess who missed exactly one play at the beginning of the third quarter while he was finishing uploading photos. After that first half, I was like, well, certainly, what's one play? But, then immediately after that, you get they score again. It was like, 2 touchdowns in the span of a minute or something like that. And just like that, you went from 13-0 to 27-0. And, the Michigan-Maryland game looked like at halftime or just before halftime, I was getting ready to walk out of the press box, and it was like, well, this thing's over. And then I kept getting updates down the field like, no, in fact, it is not over. It is very much not over. Ohio State has had that kind of screw around with Maryland week before the Michigan game before. Michigan had it today. Ohio State just kind of brushed Minnesota aside for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. And again, there was nothing that Minnesota was going to be able to do on offense, and not much they could do on defense either with the Ohio State running game. TreVeyon Henderson looking every bit like the first-round projection I've seen in mock drafts all throughout the summer and fall that were completely insane and not really likely, but now he's played up to that and really, really patient, and his vision is there. Had some jump cuts in there.
I also have to find the hole, yeah. But yeah, there's TreVeyon Henderson's numbers: 15 carries, 146 yards, pair of touchdowns, 2 catches on 3 targets, 26 yards receiving, 172 total yards. I mean,
he's a problem.
It was, this was not a 200-yard game for him total yardage, but it was close enough. And that it was. Again, it was, scored the touchdown in the first half, and then that first play of the second half, that's what you get out of him. That's what he brings that they just don't have from a lot of the other backs on this team. I know there was a graphic that we had with some comparable stats. I cannot imagine we're going to be talking about Minnesota very much longer, so let's run through this real quick. Buckeyes outpassed them, outrushed them. First downs 23-10, and it was, I think they 5 or 6 first downs. Quarter, Minnesota did only 48 plays, just 5 trips to the red zone, 5 times they scored. A few too many field goals probably for Ryan Day's liking, but they got there. They got some points out of them. They didn't turn the ball over. They did all the stuff they had to do to not have this become a stupid 60-minute game for no reason.
Yeah, 5 penalties for 43 yards. I was just looking, and as I've never seen anything like this. When they're reading off all of the unsportsmanlike penalties, I'm like, is this going to be 15 for each? Is this going to turn into a safety? But I've never read them, seen them just read out the names like that. And there was 6, 7 guys there. I think somebody said that Jordan Hancock got mentioned twice in there.
Yeah, well, it's first and second unsportsmanlike. Yeah, that was one of those the game's over. The kids are having some fun. I get it, but also, I mean, it's one of those. I guess they have to call it, but do they have to call it But
we have a super chat.
Yeah, let's punch up that super chat from Mike Farino. Let's see.
That's on you.
It is on me. Super chat from Mike Farino. Sorry to make one of the first questions not directly OSU related, but did you see the Jordan Travis injury? Feels like it would probably eliminate Florida State from the playoffs.
I did not see it. I heard a nasty description of it, so I will not be watching it. I will not be seeing it, but this does not bode well. I know they were losing to North Alabama.
Yeah, they're down 13-10 now. 8:38 left in the second quarter. North Alabama with the ball.
Tate Rodemaker
about to punt, but yeah, that's that sounds like a kind of flower, like a perennial flower.
Oh, you've got the Tate Rodemakers in.
Yes, it does feel like that has not been a dominant team, and that might be a team that has a bad time against Louisville in a couple weeks. I mean, Florida's not good.
How do you think Louisville fans are feeling right now, looking at the possibility of things like one thing goes their way and they could be playoff bound?
Well, the SEC's getting someone in, the Big Ten's getting someone in, the Pac-12's getting someone in, and Texas is getting in unless something remarkable. I think Texas might get in ahead of a 2-loss Texas might get in ahead of Louisville. I mean, maybe. Louisville's pretty far back right
now.
And
the lack of respect for Louisville is partly because of Louisville, but they have not beaten really. They've only beaten their own conference, which is not great. So they've got and really, you beat Florida State. I don't know that that's going to do much for the committee.
No, and
at this point.
And let's just clear the decks here, Joseph Butzo. Thank you for your support. Okay. I think that's enough Florida State talk. I think we've done enough with that. Let's talk a little Ohio State. And do you have anything else on Minnesota?
No. Is that who Ohio State played? That's who the Buckeyes played today?
I was putting together the folder to send photos to our producer, and labeled it in one of the places Maryland photos, which you'll never guess what I was paying attention to while I did that. But yeah, it was just kind of.
I did the same thing as I was writing the headline in the for the availability report.
Yeah, it's let's run real quick the quarterback comparisons from today, because neither quarterback had a great day. And sorry, when I say quarterback, I don't mean the two quarterbacks who played in Columbus. I mean the one quarterback who played in Columbus and the one quarterback who played in Maryland, who is not Taulia Tagovailoa. These are two guys who have been linked since high school, because these were guys who were linked in recruiting. Kyle McCord and J.J. McCarthy. Ohio State essentially had to make a decision on both of these guys were interested in going to Ohio State. Who did Ohio State want? They decided on Kyle McCord. J.J. McCarthy has gone on to have quite a career at Michigan. But both guys, at times tonight, looked like, at times they looked good, and at times it was like, oh boy, you don't want to be doing that next week.
No, and it looked like there was some concern on Michigan's side in terms of what to ask of J.J. McCarthy. And early in, or was it the first half, when he nearly threw an interception into the end zone, gets dropped by a defender, and another defender was right there as well. And then he threw an interception on the next play. Those stats for J.J. are not correct.
Right.
Just an FYI, because today he was...
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy, 12 of 23 for 141 yards, no touchdowns, one pick for J.J. McCarthy today. So, that was not a great performance for McCarthy. He looks like, you look at the game last week against
Penn State,
and he... very clearly they were not super interested in putting the ball in his hands in the second half. He finished 7 for 8, but he threw one pass in the second half, and there was a pass interference, and that was it. And again, you saw, the sequence that you were talking about was right before halftime, and Michigan fumbled the ball but got back on it. And then, sorry. Those stats, sorry. The stats we were just showing you there, those are head-to-head going against Minnesota.
That makes more sense.
Thank you. Sorry, Chad. Okay, sorry. That makes more sense. Yeah, that was, his performance today against Maryland was not super inspiring. It was right before halftime. They fumbled the ball, and I think the left tackle fell on it. And then McCarthy throws and hits a Maryland defender in the hands in the end zone, and he doesn't catch it. And then the next play, he throws another interception. And it wasn't like, wow, that was an incredible play. It was just like, no, that was just a bad decision, a bad throw. Everything that I'm, all the vibes I'm getting for next week are, this is going to be a game where Ohio State and Michigan are just kind of like feeling each other out. It's going to be low scoring. Don't make the big mistake. Roman Wilson went out with what looked like a concussion, I think. One of Michigan's leading receivers. We'll have to see what his status is. Which quarterback has to be better next week? Because it feels like neither team has run the ball extremely well. Ohio State's running game has been a little more explosive at times with TreVeyon Henderson. But it feels to me not like Ohio State has to throw the ball, but Marvin Harrison, if Marvin Harrison is going to be part of the game plan, you can only hand the ball to him so much. So that might be, with Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka and Cade Stover, maybe this is a little bit more on, Ohio State needs Kyle McCord to play well. There's a way that J.J. McCarthy doesn't throw the ball, and Michigan could still win.
Yeah, I think if Kyle McCord plays well, then I really like Ohio State's chances in this, because I do expect that you can run enough with TreVeyon, and then he'll bust one, kind of sort of what Blake Corum will do, where it's just 3-2, 3-2, 42. But if Kyle McCord is hitting, and you watched Michigan today, their corners, Josh Wallace was getting attacked, Will Johnson was giving up big plays. It gave up one big play, and they got burnt on another that was an overthrow that didn't work out. And so they were able to attack Michigan downfield. Ohio State should be able as well, as long as you give Kyle McCord time to throw. And seeing Josh Fryer struggle a little bit today, there's some concern there, obviously, that you're going to have to give him time to throw. But watching you can say the same thing for J.J. McCarthy, because Carson Barnhart, again, he played left tackle today.
Yeah.
Because their starting left tackle was hurt. And they were running right around him again. So then at another point they moved, I think, Trente Jones. Well, Miles Hinton started at left tackle. He got hurt. So then I think they put Trente Jones, who is their 6th, 7th man, at left tackle. Carson Barnhart back to right tackle. He struggles there. So this is not, I mean, this is a Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line, so I don't mean to be speaking ill of them. But they have a weakness, and teams are exploiting it. But it has not yet cost Michigan to the point of a loss. However, they have gotten an awful lot of help from Penn State and Maryland in terms of giving them free points. Taulia Tagovailoa putting the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
You know he's going to do that at some point. He's going to turn the ball over because that's what he does. Mike Sanders still had 2 interceptions in that game, and still, it was darn close at the end.
Yeah, and just to. Can we punch up that graphic with the Big Ten passing leaders on there again? Because it was. Here's a look at just the Big Ten quarterbacks and just where they are in terms of. This is ranked by average number of yards per game. In case you're wondering what the order is there, to me, I think the number that's most interesting is the TD to interception ratio here, and it's 22-4 for Kyle McCord and 22-4 for J.J. McCarthy, and.
Taulia.
No, I'm sorry, 18-4 for J.J. McCarthy. And, McCarthy obviously does more with his legs, but I think if you asked people which quarterback has had a better, year in terms of throwing the football, everyone's going to say, boy, Kyle McCord has been really inconsistent, and J.J. McCarthy, boy, he's making things happen. And yes, but also not always. Not always good things.
Yeah, talking to Marcus Hartman, Dayton Daily News, during the game, talking about how Kyle McCord is moving towards being the Big Ten quarterback of the year. And I'm like, there's no way that the media is going to give it to J.J. McCarthy. But how can you give it to a guy that didn't throw the ball in the second half of a game? The numbers are, you see what the numbers are, but I feel like at this point they know more about J.J. McCarthy. He's been more consistent, except this game he was not. 12 of 23 for 141 yards. Yeah. And I think a lot of people watched today's game because there's more interest in Michigan now.
Oh, so, have they been in the news?
Yes, they've been in the news a little bit. So it's people are like, I want to see what the difference is. And you're like, boy, this is not the 80% completion percentage I have been promised. And but it'll all come out next week. Whoever wins that game, you can still lose it, but play really well. And that will be the Big Ten quarterback of the year, perhaps, but I just think a lot of people are already, not that they've already put their ballots in on J.J. McCarthy because the ballots aren't due yet.
Yeah.
But the criticism of Kyle McCord is not C.J. Stroud, so therefore he's not doing very well. J.J. McCarthy's doing better than he did last year, so he must be really good. And these are 2 very different levels.
Right. Yeah. J.J. McCarthy has to live up to the standard of Cade McNamara, and that is not the same thing as C.J. Stroud. Talking about J.J. McCarthy as a Heisman candidate, I think we got to talk a little bit again about Marvin Harrison as a Heisman candidate. Harrison, had a relatively quiet game tonight, but he was 3 catches, 30 yards, a touchdown, but it was just kind of, that was just very much an is what it is kind of game. He's had a quiet game, a really loud game, and another quiet game. Do we have those Marvin Harrison stats we can punch up here? Harrison is someone who, here's his stats on the season: 62 catches, over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. 13 touchdowns is a lot of touchdowns. What was Terry Glenn's school record? Was it 17 in 1995?
22.
Was it 22?
24.
That's a great question. He had whatever it was for here we go, career receiving yards for Ohio State. Marvin Harrison now up to 7th, just behind Devin Smith, 8 yards behind Devin Smith. I'm going to predict that he will pass Devin Smith next week. I will go on the record and predict he will not pass Chris Olave. He would need 217 yards to pass Chris Olave next week. If he does, Tony, that's probably very good news for Ohio State.
David Boston had 200 and some in 1998 against Michigan, if I recall.
Yeah. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has also now tied Devin Smith for 3rd all-time with 30 career touchdowns. And, David Boston 4 touchdowns away, Chris Olave 5 touchdowns away.
Do you think he gets that 5, Tom? Just a tie?
I mean,
he's got a whole nother year.
He does theoretically have a whole nother year. I saw a video of Marvin Harrison walking off the field and took a little look over his shoulder as he was getting into the tunnel. It was like, that might have been, he might have a sense that that's the last time he might play on that field. You could have 4 games left. If he has 4 games left, I think I'm betting on him to get to 5 more touchdowns and get to that record. Interesting stat here. Kyle McCord, as much as people want to look at him and say can't do it, all the stuff that all the reasons he's not, all the reasons he's not C.J. Stroud. There are his stats tonight: 20 of 30, 211, 212 yards, couple touchdowns, 22-1 as a starter. That's at some point, quarterback win-loss record is a way overly reductionist.
22-1, huh?
Overly reductionist stat. No, that can't be right. No, that can't be right. No, sorry. Oh, sorry. J.J. McCarthy. Sorry. J.J. McCarthy, 22-1. But yeah, McCord has won his games this year. They've. How much have you, when at the start of the season, how much of the conversation was you got to get to the Michigan game and that's when the season actually starts? Because I think a lot of Ohio State fans, yeah, sure, you're 11-0. Nothing matters until you beat Michigan this year. That sort of feels like this is sort of where the season has sort of started for people.
Yeah, and especially based on if we're just talking quarterbacks, what C.J. Stroud has done in the last 2 years, where the numbers are fantastic, but the way he was remembered was for those Michigan losses. Now, I think his memory is getting to be it's getting glossied up because of the cheating and the NFL play right now.
Yep.
But for this, Kyle McCord, you win, you beat Michigan, and then suddenly this looks a lot better. The season looks a lot better. However, he coming into this game, he was 12th nationally in pass efficiency, number 9 nationally in QBR. I think these are good numbers. These are very good numbers. For me, this was the epitome of a Kyle McCord game that we've seen so much this season, where there are moments where you're like, some bad throws. But then you look at the overall stats. He completed 67% of his passes, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yeah. Now, granted, the defense again dropped an opportunity for an interception. But there's some good stuff. And some of those yards are obviously jet sweeps, but tell me Dwayne Haskins didn't have 1,000 yards passing on jet sweeps. Like this is part of the offense. But overall, it's like 20 of 30 for 212. How many times we've done this post-game show this season, 11 times now? Yeah. And at least 4 of those I've been like, but look at the overall numbers at the end. Right. It's like it's not always going to be pretty, but if he has 20 for 30 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns and no turnovers next week, Tom.
You got to like their chances. I mean, that's because I think that's going to be a low-scoring game. If you get a couple touchdowns through the air, and you figure you probably get one on the ground, you get into the low to mid-20s, kick a field goal or two, 24, 27 points, very well might win that game next week. And, you compare Kyle McCord's stats that we just talked about there to J.J. McCarthy's today, 52% completion, 12 of 23, 141 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. That's 2 weeks in a row where McCarthy, that's 141 yards this week, and what did he have last week? 80? 60? Yeah. I mean, he probably has had fewer passing yards the last 2 weeks combined as compared to...
Yeah, 201 for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, 201 for the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, fewer passing yards the last 2 weeks combined as compared to Kyle McCord. And everyone's talking about J.J. McCarthy as a Heisman contender and, if not favorite, and Kyle McCord is terrible and can't do anything right. And
he has not thrown a touchdown pass this month.
Wow.
It's been a month since he's thrown a touchdown pass.
4 touchdowns against Michigan State, and then nothing since then. Did anything change the week of the Michigan State game that might have...
Well, that's an interesting point, Tom. No, I don't believe so. I would have to go back and check my notes. I don't think anything major has happened regarding anything involving either of these teams or any of these teams.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about running backs. Again, we're doing a little bit of forward looking here.
We did get a super chat.
We do have a super chat. We got to hang on. We got to pop this super chat on there. From Mike Smith, Deacon Hill had more passing yards. Deacon Hill from Iowa. had more passing yards and touchdowns than J.J. McCarthy today, put his name in for quarterback of the year in the Big Ten. I think if Kyle didn't miss some of the easy-looking throws, people wouldn't be so upset. And that's kind of been one of the stories of Kyle McCord's season is, starting from game one at Indiana, if only they hadn't called the penalty that the Big Ten said, in terms of Marvin Harrison stepping out, and the Big Ten later said, oops, shouldn't have been a penalty, but they called it, and it wiped a touchdown and 30-something yards passing off the board. And that cost them, I don't remember if they kicked a field goal on that drive or got held out of the end zone or whatever, but that shines his stats up a little bit. And you had a bunch of throws tonight where he goes through these stretches where it's like, how did you possibly miss that throw? You miss. There was one to, I think, Chip Trainum where it was like, what? How did you miss that? And a couple where there was one where Emeka Egbuka was in the end zone, and it was so far off that it was like someone ran the wrong route or made threw it to the wrong spot. That wasn't a bad throw. That was a miscommunication.
He missed Julian Fleming on one down in the corner of the end zone as well, where he was open. And I think that's maybe that is one of the frustrating things with the passing game. You have dudes running open, and the quarterback is missing them sometimes. But when you miss an open guy, it's glaring. It's something you don't forget quickly. Fans, media, we are not cornerbacks. We don't just move on.
All right, and we do have a couple more super chats that we missed earlier. Fort Wayne Buckeye, you must pick one. Most important offensive and defensive player for Ohio State to win the game. Great work as always, fellas.
This should be just a show in itself. But it is a super chat, so let's spend 30 minutes on this.
Yeah.
Most important offensive player, I think. See, this is interesting because you run to win the game.
Yes.
But if Kyle McCord is completing 75% of his passes and throws for 260, do you feel pretty good about Ohio State's chances there? If he's not turning the ball over, and he's not a turnover guy, there are some times where he may put the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
So if he plays turnover free, where's your percentage versus if Travion Henderson goes for 110 on 20 carries, but I guess I would have to tell you how much of those are those 120 yards is in one carry.
Yeah, and I feel like I kind of want to pick Travion Henderson, and if I'm picking Travion Henderson, I'm picking Travion Henderson to have more than 110 yards.
Yep.
But if I'm picking Travion Henderson, the problem is picking Travion Henderson is really picking the Ohio State offensive line.
Yes.
If I'm picking the median carry for Travion Henderson, where it's not like, 5 carry or 20 carries of 3 yards and 1 carry of 70 yards, and that's how you get to, the big magic number. If you're picking if his median carry is like 4.5 yards, 5 yards next week, and you're probably going to pop one for at least 20, 30 at some point. That probably, if he's able to run the ball that consistently, that tells me a lot about how the offensive line is playing, and that also then opens a bunch of stuff up in the passing game where then it's just, you don't need to make a C.J. Stroud throw. At that point, you're going to have one-on-one coverage on Harrison or Egbuka or Stover, and then it's like, just go get the ball there and let those guys get it. So I think my answer is Travion Henderson on offense, because that tells me a lot about the offensive line, which is actually would be my major question for the Buckeyes next weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Travion Henderson. The concern with taking McCord, you would take him so that you could eliminate the possibility of bad play. Like it's an insurance thing. You hope not to use it, but it's there in case something bad happens. But with Travion, he had 14 carries in the first half tonight, so I would expect this is going to be the first time we get to see him in a while where he is the workhorse. And he could end up with 32 carries in this one, like get 1 carry for 75 yards in the second half.
Yeah, so I'm just going to do the math here in my head. 14 carries for 71 yards in the first half, which is like that is I think exactly 5 yards on the nose on average. And this is not a good Minnesota run defense at all. This is a team that got run over by Purdue last week, who was famously not that great this year.
What if I say Josh Fryer? If you want to pick one offensive lineman, or Carson Hinsman.
Carson Hinsman.
But if you
Yeah.
choose Travion, you lump out all of those guys in. If
Right,
you're
yeah.
bundling at that point, it's not really fair. But
yeah, it feels like that's, it's the Joe Moore Award. Like,
Yeah.
who is the best? All of these guys, this group right here.
defensive player.
Defensive player. I think is it someone in the middle of? Is it someone in the middle of the defensive line? Is it Tommy Eichenberg? Or is it Josh Proctor? That you just, if they don't get popped over the top like they did last year, and Josh, and you get a ball. We saw Maryland get hands on footballs and not catch them. We saw Josh Proctor tonight get hands on footballs and not catch them. If Josh Proctor has a good game and you're not getting popped over the top, and then also, maybe you get an interception, or is it Sonny Styles? Because if he's having a good game, he's probably making a lot of tackles at or close to the line of scrimmage. I mean,
Thinking if you go Sonny Styles, maybe because he's holding up Colston Loveland in coverage, something like that.
Yeah.
Or I'm also thinking Ty Hamilton in terms of the run stopping and just being a wall there. I honestly don't think it comes down to one particular person needing to have their best game. I just think it comes down to don't make mistakes, play your 111th, don't go chasing Blake Corum at times, let him come to you in terms of the cutbacks and just make the tackles. But if I'm choosing one guy, we've seen JT Tuimoloau, and we saw Jack Sawyer tonight against Michigan's tackles. They are questions. And if you can create an issue right away, that issue can continue to build and build throughout the game because, one, they're going to have to do something to contain that, to help slide protection over there. And then you slide protection that way. Neither of their offensive tackles, regardless of which four they're starting at this point, are all that good. And so they're not great, I should say. They're college football players. They're playing at Michigan. They're starting at Michigan. They're fine. But we've seen some issues there. Ohio State's defensive ends, we've now seen Jack Sawyer do well. Now this is Minnesota. It's not Michigan. But we've seen JT Tuimoloau have big games against good competition. So I think one of those guys could just create some problems that continue that make J.J. McCarthy hear things, see things, not see things, not see things to just maybe affect him later on just for all four quarters. So I would say, I don't know. That's a really good question. So,
Yeah.
But I guess if you're going to add, the closer to the ball, the better. So I'll just say JT Tuimoloau.
I think as you were talking, you sort of talked me into that as well, because so much of controlling Michigan, containing Michigan, is don't let J.J. McCarthy, when you have the moment when everyone in Ohio is getting up off their couch going, oh, they've got him, and then he gets out of there and turns a sack on 3rd and 7 into a 9-yard gain, and they move the chains. If JT Tuimoloau is having a good game, then he's presumably not letting that happen. That feels like that might be one of the sort of low-key things, because Michigan has not been super explosive in the run game, and Ohio State's been pretty good against the run this year in terms of not getting run over. So, and Michigan was, again, against Minnesota, or against Maryland, I did not watch the whole, the entire game, but 3.4 yards per carry for Blake Corum, 3.5 yards per carry for Donovan Edwards. They just, I'm sure they were keeping things kind of basic, but that's been a consistent theme with them a lot this year, where they can't get stuff going, and it's just sort of like, well, you got to run to, like Mayan Williams against Penn State, like, well, you got to get him 24 carries, even if he's getting, a foot and a half per carry, a yard and a half per carry. Another super chat we got to get to from Mike Farino. Roman Wilson being out could potentially be huge. He's really their only wide receiver that consistently wins routes.
Yeah, and he seemed just fine on the sideline.
Yeah.
And this is a game where if you're okay on the sideline after getting knocked out or knocked down, hit the head, and he was wearing sunglasses, but a lot of the Michigan players wear sunglasses. I don't know if it's because there's cameras in them. I'm not saying that. But he did have sunglasses on, and that's, a concussion thing. But it was also very bright, surprisingly. So This reminds me of the Josh Proctor thing,
Yes.
where he hit his head, but he was on the sideline and he was fine. And we talked to him after the game, but he still didn't play the next week. But had this been Michigan, I'm guessing he would have. And I totally expect Roman Wilson to play. This isn't a it didn't look that bad. If they're on the sideline, I expect them to play. I think Mason Graham was fortunate not to get booted there in the third quarter for a targeting.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh boy, that would have been a big.
Yeah.
That would have been
So
a big one.
they overruled it. They unconfirmed it, whatever you want to say, and he was able to remain in the game. So that would have been a pretty big loss in the first half for them, but did not happen.
All right, so I'm going to take a little. Sorry, I had to take a care of an issue in the comments. Now we're all squared away there. Thanks to everyone in the comments.
Did Sue get going? Was she going crazy?
No, this was no. No. Yeah, it is. This is going to be. To me, I look at next week's game, and it is everything about this screams low scoring defense. Comes down to the final minute, kind of 20-17 kind of game, and it feels so likely to me that that's what happens. And then I look back at 2006, and I think, man, I said all of the same things, and then you ended up with 81 points. So,
watching Michigan today, and I'm sure a lot of people watch Michigan, and Ohio State fans were getting very confident in what they were seeing. And then you watch the Ohio State offense, the passing game, Kyle McCord, you're like, gosh darn it. And the confidence goes not out the window, but this was not last week's Kyle McCord. If you had seen last week's Kyle McCord, then I think the expectations start to grow. I do wonder what the line is tomorrow, if it's still 5.5 after, or if it's already changed, because I don't think you can watch that Michigan game and be or super confident, but also it's not unusual to look like that the week before the game, and it has no bearing on what happens in the game, as we saw last year when Michigan struggled with Illinois, won by a score, and then came out and barely got by the Buckeyes in Columbus.
Well, and I look at last year, this same thing. It was Ohio State was the one playing in Maryland, and Ohio State was Michigan played at noon again. Ohio State played the 3:30 game at Maryland, and Michigan looked terrible against Illinois and barely escaped. And we're sitting there in the press box at Maryland watching this and going, "Whew, they look terrible. Boy, they look bad. Oh boy!" And then Ohio State came out and did not light the world on fire against Maryland. So I think there is a certain amount of it's the week before the Ohio State-Michigan game. As much as everyone wants to tell you, our focus was entirely on fill in the blank. That doesn't feel entirely true to me.
But the question about Roman Wilson, I mean, that would be a significant miss. They've been using more and more of Samaj Morgan, the true freshman. He's fast, he's quick, he's slight, but Cornelius Johnson had a wide open deep shot that McCarthy missed, and he had time and broke open on a deep post, and it just wasn't there. And that's a little bit of what we saw last year. Like, this looked like last year's J.J. McCarthy. And we know what Ohio State did against last year's J.J. McCarthy, but this also is not last year's Ohio State defense. And I'm sure we will talk about that many more times throughout the week. And I did throw out a tweet again. If you want to send us some questions for some Buckeye Weekly episodes this week, go ahead and find my tweet, because we'll miss, although honestly we could grab a bunch of these questions for the week's worth of shows that we had, because I don't know that we're going to get to all of them here today.
Well, let's hit a super chat from FDR. Is great. Will Ohio State bring extra security to Ann Arbor? I'm fearful of the Michigan tunnel and Michigan wanting to start fights or trying to hurt Buckeye players.
Well, I think Ohio State won't need to bring extra security, because I believe Michigan will have plenty of security, being that the tunnel now is a notoriously dangerous place. Now, there will be no Spartans there, so that will make it safer, but there have been incidents there in the past between Ohio State and Michigan, so this is not a surprise. And the size of this game, I would say, Tom, maybe the National Guard Like, it's not just Ohio State bringing security. It's not just Michigan bringing security. It's President Joe Biden sending in the National Guard to make sure that nothing happens.
I am going to guess it probably will not get to that, but yeah, I mean, this is. I understand where the question's coming from for sure, and this is always a. Let's just say feisty game. It is always a feisty game when Ohio State plays Michigan, and that's only going to be more true this time because there's always bad blood. And as much as Michigan people want to say, oh, only bad stuff only happens in Columbus, everyone's always very nice in Michigan, like the 90% of the fan base is fine and is no worse than anyone else, and then everyone has their 10%, and everyone wants to say your 10% is worse than our 10%. It's like, okay, that's fine, like whatever. You have the beer throwers and your all that stuff. It feels like with the way this has gotten talked about in certain areas, you're getting people a little too wound up. Where I can absolutely see where there's concern about will something stupider than normal happen?
Yeah, almost trying to speak it into existence, that sort of thing. And I know one of
not me. No. Just to be clear, not me.
No. The people. It's always the people's fault. It's never our fault. But everybody's going to be on high alert, which has me wondering if like a basketball game where there is bad blood and the refs are like calling it super close. Like, I don't know if you can do that in football, but you can flag somebody for taunting immediately just to nip it in the bud. But you cannot do that to cost somebody a drive or something like that. Then you're involving yourself overly into the game.
You're going to see. This is my first bold prediction of the week. You're going to see offsetting personal fouls within the first 5 minutes of the game.
I do know one of the listener questions, and we'll talk about it later in the week, is something, or maybe just a listener statement, that there will be some fighting during the game or after the game, and not maybe not fisticuffs, but some shoving where people have to get involved, people have to come off the sideline or whatever. I am wondering that the celebration of the defense that received all of those penalties, I wonder, like, if there is a pick six that made it like a 4-touchdown game for Jordan Hancock, because he was back here and he said, we can't do that in a big game. We can't let that happen again. They would totally let that happen again if it's like, oh, now it's 35-3. That would be 18 different. They would remember when Georgia scored on Urban Meyer and said, everybody get out there, get penalized. That's what Jim Knowles would come down from the press box, down those 400 stairs into the field, and he's like, wait, we got to wait for the defensive coordinator. It would be bad.
I've been thinking back to the 1968 Ohio State-Michigan game where there's footage. I think it was Jim Otis. Someone scores a touchdown or a 2-point conversion and gets into the end zone and then punts the football into the stands. Like, you might... If that game gets out of hand next week, that's one direction or another. There is going to be some emotion flowing for better or for worse. Super chat from Mike Farino. What do you think of the play today where it looked like a designed quarterback run, seemed like not a smart risk to take with McCord's ankle still healing, and the biggest game next week?
That was bizarre.
That to me was there were a couple things that I was like, that's a weird way to handle that. I mean, I more saw the end of the first half, so I'm going to let you address that one. That call, that was in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, and McCord had already gotten hit once. Devin Brown did not play, so Devin Brown was a game-time decision and didn't play. So Devin Brown has not played since Purdue. It's 30-0 at that point, I think. And, like, that is not the moment to run your quarterback with your starting quarterback with a bad ankle with a 30-point lead in the set. Like, I think I tweeted once during the game, and it was like, that is not what I would have done in that moment, because you're asking for trouble. If he gets hurt and is missing next week's game, so it's like, okay, well, all you got to do is go on the road and a first-time start for Devin Brown, and like the risk reward there was just that. You want to show that to set something up for next week? Okay. Run that in the first drive next week. Like, you can surprise them and then run whatever it is off it. Like, that to me was just, the risk reward there was not did not suggest to me this is a good idea.
Yeah, I think that was totally to show Michigan, hey, Kyle will run it. You can't just assume he's going to hand it off. I think that's what that was entirely, because that's not something that they're looking to draw up and get a big hit out of. They're just trying to make Michigan respect that. And if it works next week, like if they run it next week, you're not expecting a big hit then either. So you get ready, you get done with it this week, and then you move on to what you're normally going to do out of it. But it was a bit odd. And then at the end of the quarter, throwing the ball with like 6 seconds left at your 20 or whatever, and getting your ankle rolled up again, and just watching him like get up slowly, calm cord, get up slowly, test his leg, and then walk off, and then that's the end of the quarter, and then he starts jogging off, and it was never a fast run off the field. It was just a slow building. Like you could tell, like he wasn't feeling great, but obviously he was good enough to come back. And he said after the game he was fine.
Super chat from Greg Wagner. Will Ryan Day and Sharon Moore chat at midfield during warm-ups? What do you think they'll talk about? I'm trying to think. Like, that's one of those things, like you always see on the broadcast, hey, here's the shot of the two head coaches talking at midfield.
Yep.
That never lasts very long. That's just, they have different stuff to do. It's more like a hi, how are you kind of thing. I'm trying to think if Ryan Day talked to Jim Harbaugh at midfield last year or not. And that may have just happened and I didn't see it. I'm going to guess not. I'm going to guess there is probably generally at the Ohio State-Michigan warm-up, there are a bunch of coaches on the 50-yard line, like a lane line in the swimming pool, like don't go past this. I'm going to guess not. I'm going to guess whatever post-game handshake there is going to only be a handshake in the most technical of terms and will last probably about 3/8 of a second. So, yeah, I don't, sportsmanship and yada, yada, yada. I don't think you need to pretend to like people if you very clearly don't care for them and or things they have done. I would guess that's not going to be a particularly lovey-dovey game.
This isn't a bowl game where you have the coaches sitting at the same dais doing a press conference.
Can you imagine?
I can.
Can you imagine what that would be like this week?
Should we put in a request? No, we ought to do. Let's get everybody's in Ann Arbor Friday.
You tell me when and where to show up. I will. You want to do that in Boise on Tuesday? I will be there. You want to do that Thursday at noon in Tucson? I will be there. You let me know when and where. I will be there for that.
Like, why is the picture so bad? Why is it foggy? It's like, that's the tension. It's causing a crazy kind of atmosphere here. But we may eventually see that with the 12-team playoff, where they have to sit at the same table and answer questions, which would be fantastic.
I am now in favor of the 12-team playoff. In case I wasn't entirely certain until this moment. Super chat from David Greenshield. Any early thoughts on how aggressive Day will be with the offensive game plan?
It's the Georgia game plan, and not in the. It's the Georgia attitude. The swing, keep swinging, but that's also with the idea that you had to do that against Georgia. I don't know that you necessarily have to do that against Michigan, but I would say the plan worked. They lost. So did it work? Like offensively, it worked. So I think they're going to remain aggressive because they've been looking for this. To me, this is like Clemson 2020. You've been thinking about it for a year. They came out swinging in that one because they knew what went wrong the year before. They didn't swing hard enough. They field goals instead of touchdowns. Field goals instead of touchdowns have hurt them the last 2 years against Michigan. So I think, and after watching Maryland take some shots downfield and be successful, but also I would expect, we've seen Michigan State and Minnesota play like the too high and not want to give up anything deep. So would we expect that from Michigan, even though that's not necessarily what they do? Is that what they do to try to limit Marvin Harrison? And also, oh, by the way, Emeka Egbuka is back. Oh, by the way, Kate Stover is back. So if they do that, then again, it comes down to Ryan Day being patient enough to run the ball. And the way Travion Henderson is playing right now, he gives you the luxury of being like, it's not a bad thing to be patient because the way he is running, if you give him enough opportunities, and sometimes it only takes one opportunity in the third quarter, he's going to go the distance.
Yeah, if I'm Michigan, I am making Ohio State be methodical and beat me. Because I think if I'm Michigan, I think my defensive line is going to stand up to your offensive line, and you're not going to be able to run the ball consistently. And, you don't let Marvin Harrison beat you over the top. And if I'm Michigan, I have a safety on, I shade a safety towards Marvin Harrison's side of the field and say, Emeka Ibuka, Julian Fleming, Cade Stover, we're not going to let you run. You're not going to let Marvin Harrison beat us. You beat us. That's what I would do. You don't need to be super aggressive until Ohio State shows they can be methodical and go down the field, first down by first down. They had an absolutely incredible drive tonight. It was in the second half, 16 plays, 84 yards, 9-18. Ended in a touchdown. It spanned 8:01 left in the third quarter till 13:43 of the fourth quarter. If they do that next week, boy, that's probably going to be a good sign. I don't think they're going to do that next week, but
one last thing on this game, the Minnesota game. At one point in the first half, or maybe for the entire first half, the average starting field position for Ohio State was the 9-yard line, or the 11-yard line, their 9-yard line.
Yeah.
And then the next drive, they get it before it was 11, then it was down to 9 because they started at like the 6. And then, of course, they started at the 25 in the third quarter, and you saw what happened.
Yeah. Super chat from Mike Smith. I didn't see Matt Jones at center. Carson Hinsman had 2 bad snaps and got beaten badly one time for sure. In your opinion, is there a length to his leash next week before they try something else? Hit the thumbs up.
Yes, definitely hit the thumbs up. The length to the leash, to me, he would have to play poorly for them to make that move now, because I was surprised they didn't get him any snaps in there. They got Victor Cutler in there at the end. So at this point, they're riding Carson Hinsman and riding Travion Henderson, and everybody else, and seeing that this is not Georgia's run defense that they're going to be facing. So, you would obviously love Carson Hinsman to play his best game. He could, but boy, Michigan's defensive tackles are really, really good. So this is going to be his toughest game, and he's going to have to be ready, and Matt Jones is going to have to be ready.
Yeah, and Maryland today ran for 18 inches, a little less than 18 inches per rush, and that's includes sacks, but still 3.2 yards per carry for Roman Hemby, 2.4, 2.3, 0.8. I mean, no one was running the ball for Maryland, and Maryland has had issues running the ball all season and has had sack issues all season, but Ohio State's not going to be able to, not going to be that bad next week, but I'm going to be interested to see how well they can run the ball against Michigan. I do wonder if Matt Jones left at the end of the first half. It looked like just like a finger or something, like he had something on his one of his fingers. So, a broken finger or just a bad cut or something, he had to go in. But, the fact that he left, he came back in the second half, so obviously not a big issue, but I was expecting him to play some more center tonight, just because you give him another drive or two and you make Michigan wonder, you keep the option open for yourself. The fact that you didn't see him tonight, maybe he comes and they make that change next week, but I think that's something you probably, I'm certainly not expecting it to start that way. If it's like, well, this very clearly is not working, then you try something else.
I wonder if the finger kept him from playing center because of snapping. If it was something like that, or you're just, we're not going to deal with it. We'll push this aside.
Yeah, super chat from Jeff Hines. Thank you for your support. And a super chat from Mike Farino. Just want to advertise the Huddle Board. By Tony, that's the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus at BuckeyeHuddle.com, our members-only board. And point out that Carolina Kid returned to the thread he made a few weeks ago. That is the thread about the Michigan thing, where he had put something in there like a week or two before the thing started and kind of said, like, I'm hearing some weird, rumblings about Michigan, and there was a bunch of speculation about what that might be, and it turns out, well, you know what it is. If you're subscribed to this YouTube channel, you know what it is. He said he dropped something else he was hearing. It is something already rumored, but I have not seen that. I'm at this point, I'm sure 18 pages behind on that thread because I was busy. I was a little busy today.
And if you join today and go to the thread, you will be 335 pages. If you join right now, you'll be 335 pages behind on that one thread.
I think that might be, honestly, I might be more than 17 pages
Yeah, I
behind.
think you're going to have some reading to do,
accurate,
Tom.
Yes. We got to get to the most important question from It's Just Me, Tim. What will the weather be like? So I pulled this up. The weather forecast for Saturday in Ann Arbor. Mostly cloudy, high of 44, winds southwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour, 22% chance of rain. I mean, for Michigan, this time of year, that's about what you're going to get. I mean, high of 44 is, so at noon, it's probably in the mid to high 30s, something like that. And then by the time the game's over, it's in, the low 40s, something like that. Mostly cloudy, just as God has intended for this rivalry for the last. That was one of the things that really threw off everyone's feng shui last year. Last year was it was like 50 and sunny. That's not how this game is supposed to be. It's supposed to be cloudy. It's supposed to be gray, overcast,
Right.
and like 40 degrees.
The partly sunny is kind of worrisome. It's like, come on, give us some partly cloudy, fully cloudy, if you could, please.
So Mike Farino says it's the practice footage thing. Yeah, we'll keep a, we're not going to dive down that particular rabbit hole right now. Mike Smith says, how much pain will Tommy be looking to inflict next week after not being able to play today? Hancock looked really good today. He is another level. Ryan Day, if you are joining us late and didn't see the Ryan Day press conference, Ryan Day essentially said he had to not quite fist fight Tommy Eichenberg to keep him off the field, but Tommy Eichenberg was probably not all that enthusiastic about sitting out in what would have been his final game in Ohio Stadium.
Yeah, but you would take that to be able to play next week and get a win. But yes, Ryan Day said some late night texting last night to convince Tommy not to play and that there are more important games and the rest of the season is still on the line. Jordan Hancock, on that interception, he read that the entire way, snatched it, took off, and he almost had another pick six last week. He is playing at a very high level right now. Now that he's getting to play almost every snap, although Sonny did play some nickel today and Jihad Carter came in the first half. But now that he's playing as much as he has, he has made this position his own. He is playing at a high level. He is comfortable. He is comfortable talking to us afterwards. Like, none of this is new now. He is a veteran. And you're seeing why he was so highly coveted as a recruit.
And how do you match up Jordan Hancock, Sonny Styles? Who are you trying to, obviously it's not going to just be like, you're on this dude all day. But how are you sort of assigning who's on, are you kind of trying to have Sonny Styles on Colston Loveland? Are you trying to, who's Jordan Hancock covering in that offense? How do you assign the defensive backs next week?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Colston Loveland because he is going to pick apart the linebackers, I think. So, and the linebackers is another issue. Do you go with Cody Simon instead of Steele Chambers? And if you do, then they're really going to go after Cody Simon in the passing game. So I do think you'll see Sonny Styles. That's why he played against Georgia, was to go up against a tight end and cover one of those guys. And Michigan will play a ton of 12 personnel. So there's going to be somebody for him to defend. Now, it's not always going to be Colston Loveland. Sometimes it's going to be A.J. Barner because Loveland isn't going to be on his side. Sometimes Loveland will be on the wide side, and we know Sonny's going to be on the boundary. So there will be some matchup issues there. But, it's going to be tough because they're going to look for Loveland, and he's effective. He's a really good route runner. He's athletic. He's fast. Linebackers, it's not a good matchup for them. So that's one of the reasons J.J. has had such a good season is because Colston Loveland and then Ronnie Wilson. Did I say Ronnie Wilson? Roman Wilson. I was Ronnie Bell. Roman Wilson, had 10 touchdowns in like his first 6 games this year. Has sort of slowed down and quieted down, but a tremendous slot receiver. That's going to be a pretty good matchup. Him and Jordan Hancock, I think, all game long.
Super chat from Ravia Tutube. It seems like we'll have a clean bill of health for next week, and with everyone back, I feel like we'll dominate this game like 4 years ago. Thoughts? So, clean bill of health. It sounded Ryan Day did not want to dive into it too much during post game, but he didn't not say they were going to have Mike Hall back next week.
Right.
It sounded like they were probably expecting everyone back, and I think the caveat there is everyone back except for Lathan Ransom is, I think, sort of the understood implied thing there. Ransom last week was on a scooter. This week he was in a boot, so it's progress, but it's, if you're in a walking boot, that's probably not he did not run out on the field for senior day. It was
right. It was
day
went to
methodical. Him. It was a methodical walk out on the field. So I think other than Lath and Ransom, they got to get through a whole week of practice. It's probably is it a physical week of practice, or is it a take rest, relax, go in as healthy as you can week of practice? I don't get the sense that the intensity is going to be a big issue for them next week. So,
back to when I was a student during Michigan week, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before, I wouldn't go to class. The coaches want you to be off your feet. So I'm thinking, don't make the kids go to class. Don't make the football players go to class. Stay off your feet. Get some rest. We'll have some practice. They're not going to overdo it. And this time of year, you ramp it down anyway. You let the young guys, it's not quite like bowl practice, it's not like that, but you let some more young guys get in there as well, because you don't want to get anybody hurt at this point, because guys are already banged up as it is, so you don't want to make things worse.
Yeah, getting to next Saturday healthy, I think, once that got to 27-0, get to next Saturday healthy should be goal number one at that point. It seemingly wasn't. They played, you saw guys out there, like significant players out there, longer than I was expecting. I think Kyle McCord probably played an extra drive or two because they didn't have Devin Brown. And, do you want to put a true freshman like Lincoln Keenholz out there in that kind of a spot, where, hey, he throws a pick six and then you have a, whatever. You can turn 27-0 into 27-14 and a little bit too uncomfortable.
Yes.
Pretty quickly. So, yeah, I think that's probably a consideration there. Super chat from Jordan Kapler. I think we need to have a real serious conversation about who is the best Jordan. Jordan Hancock and Jordan Fuller, both very good. Not to pat myself on the back too hard, but I am at least an above average Jordan. Jordan Kapler, not Hancock or Fuller, predicts Ohio State 35, Michigan 17. Boy, if Ohio State gets to 35, I like their chances a lot next week. I am not expecting 35.
It's only 5 scores, though.
Well, unless you're kicking field goals.
It's only 13 scores. It's like 11, I think.
It's like 11 and 2/3. It's let's do this Iowa.
No.
It's 11 and a safety.
There you go. Perfect. It's 23 safeties.
Jordan Hancock has been great this year. He's not at Jordan Fuller level yet. If he comes back next year, maybe he gets to that level. Jordan Fuller is one of the more underappreciated players in Ohio State the last decade, I would say. Hancock's not there yet, but you can absolutely see. This year you can see he's finally healthy. He had hamstring issues all last year. This year, you got to remember, he came out, he was like a top 50 player nationally out of Georgia. Clemson really wanted him when Clemson was still a thing that happened. He was, that was a major recruiting win for Ohio State, and then he just kind of vanished for 2 years because of injuries and took a while to get on the field. You're now seeing it, and again, there still could be 4 games to go, so he could, you were not expecting Cardale Jones to be what Cardale Jones was in 2014. You never know, how the next 2 to 3 to 4 games shake out, but you could see him playing himself into turning pro, or you could see him coming back. And if he comes back, boy, that's a real big piece for the 2024 Buckeyes.
Well, and the thing is, if he comes back, is he replacing Denzel Burke outside?
I would assume
Is this the Sean Wade 2019 thing where you are the slot receiver, the slot guy, and then you come back to be the outside guy? But both have been fantastic. I think Jordan Hancock is only getting better, so who knows really what his ceiling is going to be. You just hope that he continues to go up once he makes that move outside, even though Sean Wade did make the move outside and was still an All-American in 2020, but I think that was because of the name recognition.
Yeah. Super chat from Mike Farino. Remember before the season when there were a limited amount of Buckeye fans legitimately calling for Day to be fired or replaced with Lincoln Riley? I wonder if a single one still exists. Boy, if you think we don't like this guy because he can't win the big one, I'm not sure Lincoln Riley is your dude. I did see also the report. The one guy on a Texas A&M message board whose sources were telling him that Ryan Day was a candidate for the Texas A&M job.
Oh, wow, that's big news.
Might have interviewed this week as like, I think Ryan Day may have other things on his plate right now, and make the case for me. Ryan Day's making like $10 million a year at Ohio State. Make the case for me that Texas A&M is a better job in any way if you're not going to get, this is not a guy who's getting paid $1 million and can get paid $10 million. I don't know that Texas A&M can pay anyone $10 million right now anyway, but I don't think. Put it this way, I did not change the emergency podcast alert level when I saw that on the Message Board Geniuses Twitter account. Super chat from FDR is great. How will Day and staff counter Michigan's sign-stealing cheaters? Do you think Day has 10 or more plays he didn't show Michigan throughout the season?
Yeah, I mean, you always have something new for every opponent, especially this one. You've been building stuff for this game. You've been showing stuff so that when they see it, they might be expecting something, and you go with something else. But you're also going to go with what works, what you've done in practice, what you're good at. And they've found things in the running game that they're good at, so I don't expect them to go away from that. But it's what do you do off of this? What is the branch off of this? What is the play action off of this? Just branches off of each limb that they throw out there. And so, yeah, there's going to be new stuff that they haven't shown. I am interested to see what that is. It's always interesting fun to watch. Be like, oh, there it is. That's the one we haven't seen before. Oh, this is new. Tom, diamond formation. I'm finally calling it 3. No, they're not going to run that.
No.
Robust T, perhaps, in honor of Uncle T, if you will.
Boy, diamond formation on one side and you split Marvin Harrison out to the other one on the other side. Like diamond formation into the boundary and you put Marvin Harrison into the field.
There you go.
You make someone make a choice. I'm looking at the backstage area here, and I wanted to punch this up. This is one of these things that will become a talking point this week. The transitive property, how these two teams, Ohio State and Michigan, did against common opponents, and Indiana. I mean, this is like understand that there is limited value in this to a certain degree.
It's just fun. It's interesting.
It is just fun and interesting. It is information. Indiana, Ohio State, of course, opened the season with Indiana. Indiana looked a lot better early in the season than they did later in the season. Michigan, a significant advantage in 52-7 for the Wolverines, 23-3 for Ohio State. Ohio State beat Maryland 37-17. That was close for about 3 quarters and some change. Michigan only by a touchdown earlier today. Purdue 41-7 versus 41-13. Largely the same. Ohio State 20-12. Michigan 24-15 against Penn State. Those two games were like largely the same game. That was I watched the Ohio State Michigan, the Ohio State Penn State game obviously, and then the Penn State Michigan game was like, oh man, I have seen this game. These are two, and they had to go to Happy Valley, which is never easy, but yeah, that felt like very similar games. Rutgers 31-7 for Michigan, 35-15 for Ohio State. Michigan State 45-0 for Michigan, 38-3 for Ohio State. And that was one where that game that score in either game could have been whatever they wanted to very little. And then speaking of which, Minnesota, Michigan beat them 52-10. Ohio State 37-3 earlier tonight. So I don't know that there's anything that jumps out to me there, other than there are some real similar scores here. Other than Indiana, which was the very, very beginning of the season, and Maryland, where that's a 20-point win that was not really a 20-point win for most of the game. Not that I need a lot to convince me that, these are two pretty evenly matched teams that are probably going to play a real exciting football game next week, but there's nothing there that talks me out of that.
No, and we're going to talk about it so much, but...
When?
Well, several times each day leading up to it, and we'll be at different places doing so, and many different things talking about. We'll break it down. Michigan's offense, Ohio State's offense. We're going to break all of this down throughout the week, and I'm looking forward to it. And there'll probably be some live shows Friday night for sure from somewhere in Michigan.
We sound like we're wrapping up. We're not actually wrapping up right now. We do have some other stuff we want to
Right?
get to.
No. I'm just
We have.
I don't want to
Yeah.
we're repeating ourselves too much
Yeah.
during the week. So just reminding folks that we will have plenty more this week.
All right, so let's hear a little bit more from the Buckeyes. You got to hear earlier from Ryan Day and Jim Knowles, and Kyle McCord was at the podium, and who else was at the podium? There's someone else at the podium. Let's let you hear a little bit from Jack Sawyer. He had, probably a career game, 3.5 tackles for loss, a sack, that forced fumble where JT Tuimoloau scooped it up and almost turned it into a scoop and score. Let's hear a little bit from Jack Sawyer. And the first question here, you'll probably be able to hear it, but the first question here is, so let's be honest, when did you start thinking about Michigan? What time during the game did you start thinking about Michigan?
How quickly, even during the game, your thoughts already shifting to next week?
We wanted to make sure we won this game, and we weren't looking ahead at all. But with that being, with putting that game to rest and getting the W, then all of our focus shifts to them now.
Jack, how special does today feel to have such a productive game?
No, it feels good. I just give all the credit and glory to God, and I give credit to my teammates and the coaches who put me in good positions today. And like I say, nothing really matters up to this point. All the focus goes to next week.
What do you think of the defense today? I mean, it's so close to a shutout again, but still a good performance.
Yeah, obviously we'd like to get a goose egg up there, but like I said, we played a good game. Offense played well. We're getting guys healthy, and all the focus goes on to Team of the North next week.
Can you take us through the strip sack and a little bit about watching JT get to the end zone? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, it's funny. I sacked him. I didn't know it was a strip sack until I heard the crowd go crazy. I roll over, and JT's got the ball running, and I thought he was going to get in the end zone. I'm really mad he didn't, but it was a great time. I don't know what Jordan was doing on that block. I thought he was going to throw a block. We were all messing with him on the sidelines, but no, it was a fun play. I think the defense played really well as a whole today. Davison had another great game. JT had a great game. Tyleek's playing tough in the middle. Ty Hamilton. You can just go down the list of guys who are progressively getting better as the season goes on. It's really fun to see.
How ready are you guys for next week? And you know what they have. You know what happened last year. How ready are you guys, especially compared to last year?
Yeah, no, it's exciting. We're in the same spot we were last year at this time. We're both undefeated. This year we're going up there, and it's going to be a good game. We're excited, and like I said, it's all the focus goes to them now.
What difference is the feeling on the defense right now?
We feel confident. I think that's our motto: is playing confident and being stingy and trying to get turnovers and just playing as aggressive as we can on the field. And if we do that, good things will happen.
Good job this front did stopping the run today and kind of taking them off the schedule from the beginning. How important do you think that is, kind of building momentum for next week, considering what Michigan does?
Yeah, I think it's big. I think obviously every game, if you stop the run, that's great. That's the first goal in every game is to stop the run. If a team can't run the ball, their options are limited. So we're just going to look to build on that and going into the next week and improve in some different areas. And it's exciting.
Jack, did you have to help Brian Day wrestle Tommy Eichenberg and keep him on the sideline?
Yeah, Tommy wants to be out there. Kills him, especially since it was a senior night. We're all feeling for him, but, we know having him back next week is going to be huge, and so no, he's definitely a guy who wants to get out there. He plays through everything. He's one of the toughest dudes I've ever met in my life, so he definitely was fighting to be out there tonight.
On a night like tonight when he can't play, what does he still contribute? Because I imagine he did make some sort of contribution.
Yeah, he's really smart. He knows everything that's going on. He's the quarterback of the defense, so when we get out there and we get a stop or we come off and they got a couple first downs, he's telling us what he's seeing, and I think that really plays a big part in getting a stop the next series.
All right, so that was Jack Sawyer talking a little bit about Michigan, a little bit about his big day, a little bit about Tommy Eichenberg there at the end. But yeah, a lot of that was quite a day for Jack Sawyer. He's someone who we got the question earlier about who's someone who could, if he had a big the potentially the biggest impact guy on offense or defense. If Jack Sawyer has a 3.5 tackle for loss, 1 sack, forced fumble game next week, boy, that that changes what that game might look like.
Yeah, and it could be anybody, and if they're impacting, and if that guy is creating a turnover, forced fumble that he had, he was having a career game before that sack and forced fumble. He had already had like 2.5 tackles for loss, finished the game I think with 6 tackles, and just disruptive. And we've seen him this season almost get to the quarterback. He also did that in this game. Almost got just creating havoc, creating pressure, creating issues for the quarterback, forcing him into somebody else. He kind of hockey assist type of thing, that sort of thing, where there are assists in football, but this isn't one of them. If he has a good game, if any of those defensive ends, just somebody close to the football, it could be any of those guys. But if you can win that turnover, it's not guaranteed to win if you win the turnover battle. We've seen that before, but it is sure a great start to it, or it's a nice ingredient to have, like trying to make a cake without eggs. This is turnover would be some nice eggs to have in this recipe, and then you beat the eggs and then put it in the oven, mark it with a B.
Just if you're watching on the live stream and not listening on the podcast later, this was very representative of what life looked like for Ethan Kaliakmanis for a huge amount of the day. Just Ohio State defensive linemen all over the place, smashing plates, screaming "Opa!" It was. I have more pictures of Tyleik Williams up in his face, hand up in the air, about to bat down a pass, close to maybe batting down a pass. Tyleik Williams was dominant for stretches of that game, and I don't know that it showed up on the stat sheet because it was I don't think he necessarily finished with huge numbers, but he was just constantly felt his impact there. I'm just pulling up the stats. 3 tackles, half of a tackle for loss. That is not representative of how big of an impact he had. He's another guy where, I think you look at the Michigan offensive line, the questions are more on the tackle spots than the interior. If he can just sort of make things a little uncomfortable in the interior next week, or if Mike Hall is back and Mike Hall can do that, or Ty Hamilton, or Hero Kanu, whoever on the interior of that defensive line, if they can just make things uncomfortable where it's, you hold Blake Corum to 3 yards per carry and some change, Donovan Edwards 3 yards per carry and some change, that's going to go a long way towards, if you can lock down the middle of that line, spill and kill, as they say, spill the play outside, let Tommy Eichenberg, let Cody Simon, let Steel Chambers go get it, that's going to be a big, big piece of Ohio State's success on defense.
I'll ask you now, and we'll see if this answer changes. Like the Ohio State question about which Buckeye offense, defense, would you choose to have a good game to win the game? If you could have J.J. McCarthy or Blake Corum have a bad game, which do you choose in this one? Because to me, I'm going to say J.J. McCarthy because Michigan has not run the ball very well this season, so Blake Corum not having a great game is not something that has impacted their record to this point. J.J. McCarthy having a bad game, I would say today was a bad game for him relatively. And if he had another game like that, 2 carries for 7 yards, or for negative 7 yards, I don't even believe he was positive. So if he can do that, if you hold him to that, that is a win. I think that is a win because I don't necessarily expect Michigan to run the ball that well. And even running for 150 yards, it was 3.3 yards per carry. That to me is also a winning number for Ohio State if they hold Michigan to 3.3 yards per carry. Like if Ohio State could play as well as Maryland did in this game.
If Michigan runs the same game plan against Ohio State that they did against Maryland, this is, I think, another one of these Milton Berle games where you're pulling out just enough to win. 14 yards per yard long for Blake Corum, 13-yard long for Samaj Morgan, 7-yard long on 11 carries for Donovan Edwards. There's not a lot there right now. To me, if you're Ryan Day finds a magical lamp and he rubs it and a genie comes out and the genie says, I will make one person play poorly for Michigan this week. I think Ryan Day is saying J.J. McCarthy's name faster than anything else because if Blake Corum has a bad day, you throw another running back in there. if JJ McCarthy has a bad day, there's not a plan B. If Kyle McCord has a bad day, there's not really a plan B. You haven't. Devin Brown has not taken a snap since Purdue, and Purdue was a while ago. The quarterback, it's super, super reductionist to just say, well, the quarterback that plays better, will win the game. But the quarterback who plays worse is going to lose the game, I think, is maybe a different way to look at it. Looking at the rushing totals for this year, I think you look at, Braylon Allen plays at 7:30 tonight. Actually, he's not going to play because he's out. But, Travion Henderson, only 8 games, averaging 6.7 yards per carry, 4.9 for Blake Corum. Corum has 20 touchdowns, but how many Blake Corum touchdowns have been scored inside the 5-yard line? He hit the long one against Penn State. It's not like he can only score from 2 yards out, and it's not like Hassan Haskins didn't show that you could be very effective from 2 yards out against Ohio State a couple of years ago. But Travion Henderson averaging functionally a 100 yards per game, just about. Corum 80 yards per game. If Blake Corum doesn't score a touchdown next week, that probably changes my thoughts, because it feels like Blake Corum could have not that great a game statistically, but still he, scores a touchdown or two, from 3 yards and in.
Yeah, and that's kind of his thing, 20 carries or whatever, and whether he has 70 yards or 110 depends on the one random long run that he has, but he'll punch it in. I'm just looking to see what he did last year against Ohio State, because
he had like 3 carries for 6
yards.
That's
right.
Or
yeah,
something.
He was hurt.
He was hurt.
Yeah.
Don't click on Donovan Edwards.
Oh, well, what happened there?
Nothing, and
Yes.
then everything
Then
very
everything.
quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have? We're gonna let you hear from Jordan Hancock again in a minute. I don't think that one's quite ready yet, but this is gonna be which unit? Ohio State offense, Ohio State defense, Michigan offense, Michigan defense. We're going to set special teams aside for a minute. Which unit do you have the most faith in right now of those 4?
Ohio State's defense I have the most faith in right now. They've been the most consistent. They've been tested more than Michigan's defense. Michigan's offense has struggled at times. Ohio State's offense has struggled at times. I think the only unit of those 4 that has been hasn't struggled for more than one series in a row is Ohio State's defense. And when they have been attacked, it's been not flukish, but it gets corrected pretty quickly. I think this was today for Michigan's defense a little bit concerning, because this was their first real passing attack that they've faced. This is the first guy that they've faced that could throw the ball downfield and complete passes. And he threw the ball downfield and completed passes, and also missed some. Now, Kyle McCord could miss some as well, but I also don't – I'm with you. I'm not expecting the same defensive game plan. Obviously, why would you have the same defensive game plan for Maryland as you would Ohio State? So you're going to have to work through that. And I'm also expecting different – what Michigan does in the first half is probably going to be different than what they do in the second half, because Ohio State will be adjusting. But overall, to answer your question, Tom, in a roundabout way, I have the most faith in the Ohio State defense at this point. And, Michigan is not going to be the best offense is Michigan the best offense they've faced?
Yes, probably, because Penn State is not. Penn State's not.
Process of elimination.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through.
It's Maryland or it's not.
It's Maryland.
And I don't
Notre
think it's
Dame
Maryland.
Notre Dame is, I think, not quite as good. And boy, I wish I could pull up the SP Plus numbers right now to see where some of these teams are. I know Michigan is very high on the list. I think Michigan's probably the best offense and the best defense Ohio State will have faced. But I think Ohio State's offense and Ohio State's defense are the best best offense and defense that Michigan will have faced. Man, not for the first and not for the last time, I am going to say that is going to be quite a football game next Saturday in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Holy smokes! It is that's going to be fascinating. I'm going to scroll through here on some questions. Andrew says, greetings from Ho Chi Minh City, and go Bucks. Andrew in Vietnam, very exciting. Oh man, I would kill for some Vietnamese food right now. Oh man. But thank you for joining us. Brad says the Michigan second half invincibility seems to have disappeared, and
The first time they gave up points in the third quarter this year.
yeah, and they gave up. How many points did they give up? They gave up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and
Third quarter.
Third quarter, sorry, 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. How much of that is, hey, you're playing teams with a pulse for the first time? You know, Michigan just could out talent the first 9 or so teams on their schedule. You've played the 2 best teams you played all season the last 2 weeks, so you have that. You have, you know, the general ephemera around the Michigan program and some of the soft factors that may have gone into some of the changes in Michigan over the last few weeks. Is second half Michigan dead as a concept to you, or is that just you're playing better teams, but you're still, you know, and they're trying to get out the door against Maryland the same way Ohio State was against Minnesota?
Yeah, I don't know if it's dead. I think a lot of the mystique of Michigan is dead at this point, but that doesn't mean it's still not there in terms of what the effect. Like, the mystique comes from what you think of it.
Yeah.
And it's not, doesn't mean the results can't come even when the mystique is gone, because it's still very good defense, very good defensive line that can make plays. Mike Sainer still can make plays, but also the secondary can give up some plays. It's just a matter of, do you connect when you have an opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
Because in that first quarter, Maryland did not connect, and then they have a fumble, and Michigan gets a score out of it. So you, especially in this game, when you are not perfect, you are not a perfect team, every opportunity that you have to put points on the board, if you miss it, that is not a 4-point play or a 3-point play, as Ryan Day says. That's a 7-point play, because you have just missed out on that opportunity. And you're only going to have so many 7-point plays. I don't know what the number is, but if I'm sure you go in and you're like, we will have 7 opportunities for 7-point plays in this game. If we hit on all of those, we win. If we hit on half of those, we might win. If we don't hit on half of those, then we're going to, you're not going to win. If you hit on more than half of those, you're going to feel really good about your chances. You can't, like the 2011 Braxton Miller throw to DeVere Posey would have won the game, just out of reach of DeVere Posey. You've got to connect on those.
Yeah, that was one of the great missed passes in Ohio State history, because that 2011 team, if they do that, first of all, Ohio State beats Michigan every year from 2004 until 2019. That was that 1-year blip, but man, how much does that change the Brady Hoke era? I mean, goodness, because man, people were bought in on Brady Hoke at that point. He beats Luke Fickell by that much, and Urban Meyer shows up the following Tuesday, and Michigan fans had convinced themselves that this is the. I remember the phrase 10-year war II, like being thrown around by people who were not just random egg avatar Twitter people.
I also remember ESPN running a graphic when it was announced that Urban Meyer was coming back, and like, which Urban Meyer is Ohio State getting, the winner or the quitter?
Yes. Bootzilla says Ohio State defense had given up 102 points in 11 games, and the most in any game was 17 points against Maryland.
Well, Maryland, that's a nice badge of honor for them. The most points against Ohio State, the most points against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
What do they win, Johnny?
A trip to the Pinstripe Bowl, I'm going to guess.
They could take the bus.
They could take the bus. Jordan Kapler says, stay live all the way up to kickoff. It's not like you guys have families or things to do outside of Ohio State. I'm always annoyed that this is Thanksgiving week.
Oh, man.
Because we end up trying to front load the week with lots of stuff. And just so we're kind of setting you guys up for the week, the plan is we recognize a lot of people are traveling this week. This is the week that Over the River and Through the Woods is written about. That is not a Christmas song. That is a Thanksgiving song. That is a true fact.
Wow, look at you, Tom.
Look at me.
Breaking brains.
It's also the week that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is about. Not many people know that.
Is that a Christmas movie?
No, you're thinking of Die Hard.
Yes, thank you.
We recognize a lot of people are going to be traveling. We are going to try and get you as much content as humanly possible between now and Wednesday. We will probably take Thursday off to be with our families. independently, separate families.
We're getting everybody together.
Yeah,
We're gonna let's rent an area at the park. You know.
Yeah. So we're going to try and front load you with as much content as we can. So if you have my family always did like a 10-hour drive for Thanksgiving. So if you were going to be in the car for 10 hours, or if you were going to be sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and someone's going to be talking politics, and you want to slide in one earbud in, whatever side is facing the wall, we will try and be there for you for that. And then we will be back on, I would say back with a vengeance on Friday is probably the plan.
Wow.
And we'll be up in Michigan, and live shows and all of the usual.
And the scary thing is, Tom, like we are going to be we'll be going live for as long as there are people watching, essentially at different points this week. So this isn't just up to us; it's also up to you guys. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a necessary break there Wednesday, Thursday before things ramp up again. And this is going to be a weekend to remember, a week to remember, and just stay tuned.
I think we're largely caught up on most of the questions that I had sort of.
Do you want to hawk some merchandise?
Do you want to hawk some merchandise? You can hawk some merchandise.
So we did open up a store, a Buckeye Huddle store. You can find that. We might be throwing a link here in the chat, perhaps. I think Mark and Devin talked about it earlier. But if you go to Buckeye Huddle, and you can go to the shop tab at that BuckeyeHuddle.com, there's a shop. You can get some fantastic shirts, some hats, Buckeye Huddle hats. There's other different kinds of themes as well. There you go, Michigan versus the rules. Perhaps a take on the Michigan versus the world type of thing, Michigan versus everyone. The real battle for Michigan lately has been the rules. Alleged. Is it alleged anymore? I don't think it's alleged. I think it's.
They haven't seemingly denied it. So
the one thing, Tom, the one thing they have not done is denied it. So you got stuff like that. There is another one dedicated to everybody's favorite uncle, Uncle T, who you can see coming up perhaps. But as we all know, Uncle T pities the rules. So you can find that shirt in the shop as well. And there's hoodies, there's Buckeye Huddle hats, and all kinds of things. So check that out. That is also a great way to support the things that we do here. And it also gives you some clothing, which everybody needs.
Famously, to go out in public, that is a rule that you do not want to break.
No, you don't.
That is one that will get you. The JGAC will get you. The JGAC will get you.
See,
no shirt, no shoes,
right.
No JGAC.
Tony Petiti can suspend you for whatever he wants for 2 games. You show up naked, then he's going to the JGAC, and they're gonna get you.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here. We do have. We're gonna let you leave on letting you hear from Jordan Hancock a little bit. He had some interesting thoughts, but why don't we close the show here and then let you hear from Jordan Hancock on our way out as we get started on our favorite week of the year.
It's the best time of year.
Is that your go-to after the game?
The Adriatico's out there.
Jordan, can you just walk us through your interception?
Third down, I was kind of sitting in between both routes. Kind of wanted that quarterback to throw the one to the tight end. Baited him, got a pick. Just try to get in the end zone, made a dude miss, but couldn't get there.
It seems like you've had a couple of those this year. You've tried to bait. Sorry, I got carried off. We're in this together. You've tried to bait a quarterback into throwing something. Today it worked off. But you got pass breaker for it. To get the pick off for it today, what's that mean? Just seeing that pay off like that.
It means a lot converting that. Like PBU, it could be a PBU. That's an okay play, but you kind of want to convert it to an interception. So I was happy to make that play. All my teammates was hyped with me. So.
Is there no time and place when to do something like that? When to try to shove a pass?
For sure, it's all calculated risk within the defense to make those plays.
Can you walk us through the interception or the celebration afterwards?
Shoot, I saw Blocko over there, all the student fans. So just wanted to put on a show for them, celebrate in front of them, and all my teammates come in.
Did y'all get a lecture when you got to the sideline, or?
Yeah, I got a little lecture, but can't do that next time. Big games, so I gotta control my emotions.
Hey, were you trying to talk JT into lateraling to you, or what was going on there down the sideline?
I saw him. He was holding the ball with one hand. I tried to get him lateral, but I don't think he heard me, and I just ended up in front of him. I don't know how, but yeah, I'm sorry, JT, for that.
In that situation, is the celebration worth running tomorrow?
I think so, but coaches might not think so. So whatever they say, yeah.
Jordan, was it a bummer again to lose a shutout to a 50-plus yard field goal? I mean,
yeah, no,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's horrible. We were all mad on the sideline, but congrats to those guys for scoring, and it was good for them.
What'd you think of the defense performance today? I mean, only giving up 3 points.
It was excellent. They had like maybe one explosive play, and we were all flying around the ball for the last time in the shoe, all of us together. It was a great experience.
For the secondary in particular, what does this upcoming week mean to you guys, considering how last year went?
It means everything. You know, they had a lot of explosive plays last year. We're on the film right now, so as soon as I get out of here in the secondary, we're all going to be watching film, and that's going to be our lives for the next week.
You guys take a lot of time to prepare for every game.